Neighbors in motion on the fly sweep, has the 5, hop steps into the end zone.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
And again wants to bring it out. Got a seam. And again takes it past the 30. And here he goes down the sideline. What a start for the Gamecocks. Xavier Leggett takes it to the house.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Clifford, man in his face, launches to the end zone. Trying to high point it and getting it is Parker Washington. My, oh my!
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
There's some motion. Back to throw off play action. Going deep. He has got Franklin, who's got it. Perfectly thrown ball. Perfectly recepted ball. Perfectly timed play. Touchdown, 49 yards. That was pretty.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
This is the three-man rush all day for Young is directing traffic, extending, looking, pointing deep, and delivers a shot to the end zone. Touchdown, Joe Earl.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go on this Wednesday afternoon, 365 Sports, David Smoak and Paul Catalina. We are here until 6 o'clock today. We're going to hear from Baylor men's basketball coach Scott Drew, who will be inducted next year into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. He'll join us at 4:45. Sam Kahn, theathletic.com, Pete Mundo of Heartland College Sports. They'll join us at 3:30 and 4. John Machota, NFL and Cowboys at 5:30. Paul's Top 5. Much more to get to as well. But I want to start it out with this question. It's very kind of generic, and we'll also put this up to the text line, which is 254-339-1122, and also as well the viewership and chat room on 365 Sports. You look at the games this weekend. TCU at West Virginia, Oklahoma in Ames against Iowa State, Baylor plays in Lubbock against Texas Tech, and Oklahoma State on the road against Kansas State. Of those 4 games, and including the 8 teams, specifically for this week, who has the most must-win situation in your opinion?
Eli already kind of told me this before the show, so I want to give credit where credit is due, but I totally agree with him. I think it is Kansas State, because if you look at teams like Baylor and Texas Tech, look, yeah, you can say that's a must-win, but they're already on the outside looking in, so a lot of stuff has to happen around them for them to be in this. But for Kansas State to stay out of Baylor and Texas Tech situation, they need to win against Oklahoma State this week at home and keep pace in the Big 12 race.
If they've already lost to TCU and then they lose to Oklahoma State, they would drop a couple of games behind Oklahoma State, 2 games behind TCU, and a game behind Oklahoma State, and have lost both of the upcoming or potential tiebreakers. Craig, in your opinion, who might it be?
It's TCU. They've got to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive. So I say, if you want to be unbeaten, if you want to go, run that table, get yourself into a position to get in the playoff, have all of these incredible, accomplishments. I think you got to win this weekend, obviously. You lose to West Virginia, and the Big 12 title's still up for grabs. But, also still a big bowl game would potentially be yours. I mean, as we saw last year, Baylor winning winning the Big 12 title, went to the Sugar Bowl. Oklahoma State went to the Fiesta Bowl, right? So, you're wanting to play in one of those types of games. But, yeah, you're wanting to win the conference. And then, if you got a little bit more than that as far as nationally, that's what you'd like. That's what you play for. So I say it's TCU, even though it's not the big, sexy top 10 opponent, whatever, like some of these other games might be, or some of their games might be moving forward. I go with the Frogs.
I absolutely stand corrected with what I was going to say. You have elimination games in a lot of way again this weekend with especially Baylor and Texas Tech if they want to stay in the race. You think about Kansas State because they need to stay near the top with Oklahoma State, but I'm an idiot. I was thinking about the Big 12 purposes, and Craig Wright, he's talking about the national picture, and let's not forget where TCU is.
But that's been maybe a problem with the Big 12 and schools in Texas where they only look here and not here. And so, Craig threw down that trump card really big.
Yep.
That's very true. Not only that, they're playing at West Virginia on the road, which Baylor knows all too well can undo your whole national championship hopes when you lose. And if they lose one game, they're out of it anyway. But even if it's a hodgepodge of teams that lose one game for the fourth spot, they're not going to get it because they lost to West Virginia. So it's not only that they could lose, it's who they could lose to this week. So that's
great,
kind of a double
point.
whammy.
I was thinking about it in too small of terms. And from Querte to 12, TCU, Querte 12-1. 12-1 TCU won't get in. The committee doesn't really want to put him 13-0 in. They have to win out and leave no doubt. Querte, thanks for the feedback on that. Buckshot kid, TCU needs to beat down West Virginia to prove they can be a team that can also blow out teams. Paxton says 12-1 TCU absolutely gets in. And a lot of other, Daniel said he thinks Oklahoma is the must-win. It's a very... there's a lot of array of how you could answer this based on how you're looking at it, but nationally, TCU really the only one left. Oklahoma State with an outside chance, just like last year, if they were to run the table and win the Big 12 championship too.
Yeah, I mean, but absolutely no room for error at all. I mean, they have, no room for error. So, yeah, TCU, I mean, really the only team that is undefeated, like I said, so that's why it just goes to top of mind for me. And then I think there are obviously other big games. Like, I think it'd be important for Oklahoma to win this weekend just to keep their confidence building. I think it'd be huge for Iowa State to win this weekend just to get a win in Big 12 play, right? Oklahoma State, obviously we know the stakes there, and then K-State, the walking wounded at the moment, and they could really use a win to keep their Big 12 hopes alive as well. So perhaps, if anything, and based on the Tech fans and my mentions that I discovered about 10 minutes ago, this Texas Tech Baylor game is the game that matters the least. This game doesn't matter that much. It doesn't matter to them. It doesn't. It's no big deal. So we've just been hyping this up way too much.
Well, I not on the chat room yesterday. My goodness, it was full throttle. It got to the point we were talking about who's going to win the game, and then it got to a point what city was prettier or not. And it got a little bit out of hand, but it is at times. And I said this to a lot of you yesterday. There's no need to kind of take it into the gutter, which some of you just want to do, and you just keep it. No need for it. I know it's a chat room. I know message boards. I get it. I understand social media in other ways as well. But, all right, so that's that.
I'll also tell you this, on which college town is prettier is a 50-50 shot, because some college towns outside of the college, a lot of colleges are beautiful, but outside of it is a cesspool and dirty. The campus is great. The city is terrible. So you got a 50-50 shot. College towns are all over the place when it comes to.
There's a lot of things you can argue about.
Yeah.
That is one amongst the, the tamest, I think, of all of them. And no, I guess I was saying yesterday we were talking about the buildup for this game, and I don't know. I guess that I'm wrong, that a blackout and Patrick Mahomes and all these things aren't really that big of a deal. And I don't know if my words are getting twisted, if I just delivered the message wrong. Did I make it sound like I thought that Texas Tech was like calling this the night game, like they scheduled this, and that they made the Chiefs have a bye week this week and all that? I don't think that I said it that way, but apparently to those who received it, some in that fan base, I made it to sound like this was all done how would you explain it?
Specifically
Specifically for Baylor and all
Yeah.
this other stuff. And I think my point was just like, I mean, the storylines are clear, whether it's the same records, whether it's the jostling for the current state of the Big 12, whether it's the future of the Big 12, whether it's the Joey McGuire connections, whether it's the 10-plus staff members, whether it's Grant Taft's 2 grandsons, whether it's, all of the different things, all the different crossover you want to play. I don't know. I think that all makes for a pretty big game. And then you add in a blackout and a night game, and you add in all those things, and it makes for a really fiery affair. And I think that's really all my point was that this is a massive game for Texas Tech. Like, they're going all out for it. And I wrote in another piece that, you would expect them to, given the TV time slot and given the weekend. And yeah, I understand when NFL stars are available. I've done this a little while now. So I don't know. Maybe I'm making too much of this game. I guess it doesn't matter that much. And this is just a ho-hum, just another game, just like playing McNeese State or something. So I guess, nothing to worry about this weekend, really. It's all just going to be really tame and calm and not really matter in the end.
I know you guys don't want me, huh?
A game of Connect 4. Just
I know that sometimes when I go here, but you know what? There's too much bitching and moaning about coverage and all this and looking at opinions. And I went down that rabbit hole with Oklahoma State fans after we discussed Texas, and I stayed on the replay for a long, long time. And I get emails when someone responds, and it's really 75-25 who agree with how we went about it and what we do, and that's fine. But thank you for watching.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. We damn sure, I'll make very clear, we're not here for clicks and views. We understand that feeds YouTube and whatever else. We're here to give you information, to discuss things, and give you a chance to have an opinion, but we appreciate your time.
I do want to shout out, because I knew this was coming this week of all weeks. Like, you saw Texas Tech on the schedule, and I just knew this was going to be a week with a lot of just talk and stuff like that. But the person, the one tweet I saw that I have to go back and find, but that did do the clicks and I should get the clicks and views. You are the most clueless person in the world if you're accusing me of trying to get clicks and views, brother, sister, whoever you are. You are talking out of your backside if you're going to accuse me of all people of doing that. So I just laugh when I see some of these dumb tweets. But I expected it because I don't know. I thought this was a big game, and I think that it is based on the emotions in play. And I think that when you see that crowd on Saturday night and the all black, and I'm sure we'll see some shots of Patrick Mahomes waving his towel or whatever the case may be, it's going to feel like a big game because it is a big game, and that's just really the point of it all. And I do think that, this game matters to Texas Tech. I don't think it's the biggest game they played all year. I don't think I said that either. Maybe I did. If I did, that I'm lumping that in with just tied for their biggest games of the year. But regardless, this is a massive game. Like, whoever doesn't win this game might not make a bowl game. I don't know about Texas Tech, but for Baylor, that'd be a disappointment. I don't know what the expectations are for Joey McGuire and company, but knowing him a little bit, I would think that would be a disappointment, even if it is your number one. So, I do think this is in some ways, for both teams, a big game. Yeah, absolutely, I do. I don't think that, this is any bigger than the next big game that you play. But for this week, for Saturday, this is a massive game.
Is the Big 12 Conference going to open up and get easy the last 5 weeks? No, it's not. So that's a big game because, again, if you're 4-3 and you need to get to 6-6, you need to go at least 2-3 down the stretch. And that's not a lot to ask when you talk about winning 2 out of 5, but it is when all 5 of the games you play, you could lose. This is not the back end of the schedule, like the front end of, I don't mean to knock Syracuse, but it's not the front end of the schedule where you can get to 4-0, where things are set up for you to get to 4-0. The front end of Kansas's schedule wasn't, outside of West Virginia, I don't think they thought that, but they set things up so they can get to 4-0 and then get in a conference and roll through. But that's what you try to do a lot of times with scheduling. We'll talk about the Big Ten in a second. I think the entire Big Ten schedule is set up for most of the teams to be 4-0 at the beginning of it next year. That's what they try and do. The back end of the schedule is always the hardest.
All right, I'm going to say this, and I mean it sincerely.
Turn my phone off?
No, not that. I've done that, and I'm guilty of that. I've said this yesterday, and I'm going to say it again. We have opened our arms to dozens of fan bases. We could easily be like every one of the schools you like and have a podcast that only focuses on the team you like, that you watch and you look through various colored glasses. We have opened up our arms because of what the Big 12 has been through and because we love college football. We cover a team, we cover a conference, and you're just really just being ignorant when you try to look at it any differently than that. We appreciate your time. That's enough. I'm done. Enough. Go ahead.
No, I just don't even think it's necessary.
No, it is necessary.
No, it's not, because you're talking.
I see that more and more in the chat room, and I know it's just a handful of people. And we could go back into a bunker and just sit there and cover whatever Baylor does across the board, which we do anyway. But we make time and want to make time because it's important because of our audience for everyone else we can.
Okay, that's I understand where you're coming from. That's a giant waste of time because you're speaking to a wall. You're not going to get through to anybody. I addressed it just because I've got like Craig in my mentions and things like that. So I thought I'd try and clarify for those who need clarifying, but it's not a big deal, and you're not going to talk people into behaving themselves, nor do we need to do that. So yeah, it's no sweat off my back or ours, and let's just talk about the games this weekend and all the fun stuff going on.
All right, so the chat room's going on. We appreciate you, whoever you are, and sometimes we have to just sometimes stop for a second, let the escalator stop, let the elevator shaft stop, and get to sometimes how we feel, because we absolutely give you a lot of reasons, and we want you to give your opinion. I'm going to say this as well, and I'm going to put this down as well. This is about the chat room. For those who want to get into the dirt about cities and pretty and all that, stop it or I'm nuking you. All right? This crap, this infighting, all of this stuff that we see on the... Craig, I see what you're doing. I'm done with it. I'm sick of it. I know it's idiot factor at times. We're not going to put up with that crap anymore. You start to get into the dirt with people and you start to get personal, I'm going to nuke your ass. Done. We have been here and we love what we do, but some of you just turn it into just filth, and I'm done with you. Now, Pac-12 Commissioner George Kliavkoff saying today, Media Day on Wednesday, the Pac-12 Basketball Conference, says that he feels like that the fan bases of both USC and UCLA are not happy about the move to the Big Ten. USC's and UCLA's move, of course, is going to come up in about a year. He says that the fan bases are not in favor of this move.
In favor of UCLA? Well, I bet the fan bases of USC and UCLA are. I mean, they're fine with it. I can't see why they wouldn't be, other than some travel, but I don't think that that's the most vocal thing. And I think that George Kliavkoff is trying to, protect the Pac-12 as much as he can, but yeah, I haven't seen much, hand-wringing among those fan bases.
I've spoken to more than 100 people. It's kind of what Craig has said. 100 people doesn't mean 100,000s of people. I think saying hundreds would be an exaggeration. Dozens, more than 100. He's talked to people, players, coaches, those involved with the various schools as well. This is, of course, today again at Pac-12 Media Days, the basketball Media Days. And so that was his comment. And yeah, he's trying to still maybe turn that tide or stop the flow of what's going to happen. It's the hay's out of the barn. It's not coming back in. It's not coming back in. Alabama today, another injury. They've had a few. They are deeper than probably most anybody else in college football. Not the deepest, but they had another injury. Defensive lineman Justin Ibagji. He's out for the year with a neck injury. It's not the first one. They've had other players go out. So they are going to be without two defensive linemen that are hurt. And so two other defensive linemen along with Ibogbe. I knew I was going to say that wrong. He's out for the year with a neck injury.
Yeah, I think though, them being a little banged up at times has certainly slowed them down. I think there's a reason why Alabama hasn't looked like an absolute juggernaut. They're still a really good team that beats almost everybody they play, and Tennessee had to, go right down to the wire to do what they did to get them. So it's just probably why they're not an absolute just wrecking ball of a team this year, because they have some injuries. They have some inexperience. They've got some really athletic players at the playmaker positions at wide receiver, and Jahmyr Gibbs is really good at running back, but they don't have, they used to have, like, you could just roll through running backs, and they had three of them. They don't really have that right now. And, look, they suffer from the transfer portal. They win from it, but they also lose from it. In the draft, they've lost a lot of guys for the last couple of years. So yeah, this is a maybe more of a developmental year than Alabama's used to, but their developmental year is better than most people's great years.
Yeah, they you know, there's going to be a time. There was a year or two when they won the national title. I believe they had a bunch of linebackers go out, but they still found a way to do that. Here's another college football note for you. This is kind of a, I guess, quasi-local note. Texas college football players who had the most yards rushing this past weekend. The top of the list, Keaton Dudick, was at China Spring, 306 yards. Richard Reese from Baylor, 186, a career high. And every inch of him, they needed every inch and every yard of what he did. Kendry Miller at TCU has been a fantastic player for them in that running game that produces, also the offense produces big plays. Third, he went to Mount Enterprise High School. Jaden Stewart went to Dawson High School in Pearland. And Bijan Robinson with 140 yards in that game against Oklahoma State, when I wish he, for Texas's sake, and he would have had, I know he had a lot of carries. He had 24 carries. I think that's a game you give him about 34.
But if you had probably 25 more yards out of him and 25 more yards out of Roschon Johnson in that game, which I know is 50 more yards rushing, it's a pretty middle-of-the-road defense this year compared to what they were last year. But if you get 50 more yards rushing, you don't have to throw, 15 of the passes that you threw, then that game is probably different.
Well, again, though, they made adjustments, and Mike Gundy discussed this at halftime in the postgame. That at halftime, they made adjustments on some of the counter plays that were eating them alive.
That's why I said don't have to.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably felt they had to do, so throw the ball some of those times, as opposed to sometimes, even they make adjustments, I think some of the running game's just about attitude, especially when you have Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson, two really good backs. Roschon Johnson would be the lead back at every school in the country except for maybe Texas and two others, because he's that good of a running back.
Michigan maybe.
And so he would be there. So if you've got those two guys, sometimes it's like, guess what I'm going to do, Gundy? I'm going to run the ball at you, and good luck stopping it.
Yeah, if you're good at it, don't stop it, no matter if they do. Keaton Dudick, by the way, plays at Southwest Assemblies of God Athletics up in Waxahachie, Texas. I did not give the school name for Keaton, who had a huge game, 306 yards in a game against Lyon. All right, 254-339-1122. I put up the question about who has the most must-win this weekend. Craig looked at it nationally. I was looking at it maybe more Big 12, which is my mistake on that. And now, how do you feel? And some of you have responded to us on the chat room. Some, I also put that poll up on Twitter. We'll get to that. And also the text line, 254-339-1122. This is 365 Sports. Earlier today, I had a chance to get to the gym, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive. And what I've learned over the years is how to work out when I need to by myself. And today, it was not a real stressful workout. I didn't have as much time because Wednesday mornings I record the high school football podcast and a couple of coaches' shows. So I didn't have a lot of time, and I ran yesterday, so I did weights today. And I learned how to do that. There are personal trainers at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness that will help you get to where you want to be or get to where you need to be. And then they also, along the way, whether it's Christy or Randall or Alex, will also help you so you can work out on your own when that time comes, whether it's on the weekends or a day when you're not training with them. And all of what you have, the facilities, the amenities inside of that beautiful building will give you a chance to do most anything you want. Whether you want to do free weights or Cybex or treadmill or Stairmaster or work out on your own with whatever you want to do. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco. For when Baylor plays at home, there are day passes for $10. You don't have to be a member, and you can come in and work out on your own. If you come into town and you're looking for a place, if the hotel doesn't have something you need, well, you still aren't going to have a hotel with the facilities at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Make a winning drive to Genco and refinance your vehicle. Every loan can skip monthly payments for 90 days with rates as low as 3.75% APR for 48 months. Right now is the time to make a play. At Genco, we save you money by helping you pay less for your car. Every loan scores no payments for 90 days. Then have a chance to win 3 more months of no payments. Apply online today for an additional discount of 0.15% off our already low rates. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
If you're out looking for a great selection of new cars and trucks, then shop Allen Samuels in Waco. We have some of the best deals in Central Texas that will have you driving home in style, like a new 2022 Dodge Challenger or Charger. Don't settle for anything less than high-quality vehicles from a dealership with a hometown feel. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place to shop for Dodge Challenger and Charger. Stop by today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
Come by. Let's be friends.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue, cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Here we go, this 3 o'clock hour. Paul, Catalina, Craig Smoak, and I'm David Smoak. Behind the scenes, Levi, Garrett, Emery, and also Jacob. Jacob, again, earlier today helped me put together a high school podcast focusing on Duncanville and DeSoto, a great game. Sam Kahn, theathletic.com, joins us on 365 Sports. And Sam, I asked this question early in the show. Which of the 4 games or which team in the Big 12 this weekend, in your opinion, based on the scenario, has the biggest must-win coming up on Saturday?
That's a great question. I think it's got to be Oklahoma State, Kansas State. You would kind of look at that game as a de facto elimination game. I hesitate to say that in October, but both of those teams have a conference loss, and if you have 2 going into the final month of the season, that's really going to make it an uphill battle, especially if TCU beats West Virginia and on the road and stays undefeated. Then you're 2 full games behind the conference leader, and then of course you're going to be behind the second place team, which would be the winner of that game. So you want to do your best to control your fate, and winning that game will do that for either of those teams, because then they'll have the leg up in the standings. So I would say the Pokes and the Wildcats is probably the biggest must-win of those 4.
How confident should Kansas State fans be that they will have a healthy quarterback in that game come Saturday?
That's a great question. That's really the big question, isn't it? Is the health of that position is going to play a big role, and to some extent, it has played the role of Oklahoma State too, because we know even though Mike Gundy's been coy about it, Spencer Sanders has been banged up a little bit in recent weeks. Although I thought, I saw him in person on Saturday, and I thought he looked good. But that's obviously a huge factor because the game changed for Kansas State against TCU, when Adrian Martinez went out. So that's a huge factor. And having Martinez in the game with Deuce Vaughn, it just changes what you have to defend. It changes. It makes you much more dangerous an offensive team if you're K-State, if you've got those two guys in the backfield as opposed to, one of the others, Will Howard or one of the others with Deuce Vaughn. Martinez is just such an athletic weapon that it just changes the calculus for a defense so much.
What was your big takeaway coming out of that game, Sam?
Really, obviously the game flipped there, but I continue to be impressed with TCU's ability to battle back. They did it against Oklahoma State when they were behind. They did it against Kansas State, obviously with some different circumstances there. But this is an explosive team that you cannot sleep on. And you got to give a lot of credit to Garrett Riley and Sonny Dykes. The way they've drawn up this offense is, even if they hit some rough patches in the game, there's still enough speed on the perimeter. There's still enough veteran moxie from Max Duggan, and they're still really good enough in the running game. I think Kendry Miller's been one of the more underrated players in the country this year. The guy that really moved the chains well for them. And, everybody thought, when Zach Evans went that, they're going to take a step back in the run game, but they've been pretty damn good running the ball. But I just have been impressed with their fight and their ability to turn it on even when they've had stretches of offensive struggle. They haven't been mired in that for 60 minutes. They've been able to claw themselves out of it and really make routine plays to get it going.
Yeah, 28-10, even though Kansas State went to Howard, the backup, and they're up 20 or down 28-10, and they score right before the half, and here they go. And same thing, they were able to come back against Oklahoma State when that game could have been separated a little bit. They just have this amazing grit to them, and it's kind of fun to watch. When I asked the question, I was looking at that question about the most must-win based on the conference, and maybe, and Paul said this, well, that's probably one of the problems with the Big 12 is everyone's always looked at the conference rather than the national picture. And here TCU is right now top 10, unbeaten. So in their terms nationally, how much of theirs is a must-win just to take care of their business, what you would think they would do in Morgantown?
Oh, it's absolutely is because they're in the playoff conversation now. The playoff rankings come out on Tuesday, and they are now in that conversation. And I'm sure there are no TCU fans who want to leave anything to chance if 2014 provides any proper context for that. You want to run the table if you're TCU, if you're going to have a real shot at this thing. Look, should a 12-1 TCU probably get in? Yeah, probably so. Of course, we have to see how everything else plays out. But I would like to think that a 12-1 TCU team that wins the Big 12 championship is in great shape to make the playoffs. But that's no guarantee. Remember, we had a 11-1 Oklahoma State that was inches away from winning the Big 12 title last year against Baylor. If they did that, there was no guarantee they were getting in over Cincinnati. There was going to be a very healthy debate about that, but there was no guarantee. So every game for TCU at this point is a must-win, in my opinion. Now, as far as the conference race goes, yeah, there's some wiggle room there now down the stretch. And honestly, the schedule gets a little interesting here in the next couple weeks. You got West Virginia, you got Texas Tech, you've got 3 of the next 4 on the road, including 1 at Texas. So I think it's going to be hard for them to run the table just because we haven't seen the team do that in this conference since 2016. Bob Stoops was still a coach in this conference when the last time a Big 12 team ran the table. But certainly if you want to be in that conversation, which they are right now, then yeah, you cannot lose a game to West Virginia because that is going to be a big black mark on your resume if you do.
Sam, the Baylor-Texas Tech game in Lubbock, the night game, it's going to be rowdy there. But this is a very interesting game between 2 and 4 and 3 teams that the loser in this game, you got to start wondering, do they find those extra 2 wins to get a bowl? Because both their schedules down the stretch still remain to be in a very tough Big 12.
Yeah, no doubt. This is a big one for both of them in that regard. I think probably even more so for Baylor because the last 3 for Tech are Kansas, Iowa State, and Oklahoma. And so I I do, and the way that Texas Tech is playing right now with Baron Morton, I love the way they've looked offensively ever since he's taken over. I just feel some juice with that team. So even if Tech somehow drops this one, I still feel like they're in pretty good shape. Whereas if you're Baylor, you're looking at that last three of Kansas State, TCU, and at Texas to close the season out. That's a pretty stretch for Baylor. So in terms of postseason play, I think this one's probably a little bit more important for Baylor in that regard. And also, remember room there because the expectations were, I think, fairly modest coming into the year because of how their schedule is set up. And it's not to say that there's any pressure or anything like that on Aranda, but certainly you don't want to follow up a Big 12 championship game by missing a bowl. You would like to, if you're Baylor, to at least get back to postseason play, get those extra practices, help develop some of those younger guys that have been having to see the field this year. Those extra reps will be super, super valuable for this team as it continues to grow and build forward under Aranda.
Sam, is Baron Morton clearly the guy now? And just as a kind of an aside to what you're just talking about, if this game was in Waco, would you feel any differently?
Yeah, I think Baron is the guy. I can't see how he can't be. I mean, when you watch that guy, and I'm sure you guys have seen it before, when you watch a guy and you just notice he's got a certain amount of juice and just the team feels different, the offense feels different, the way it runs feels different. And he's got that to me. And it's not to take anything away from Donovan Smith or Tyler Shuck. I think all three of those guys are talented. But Baron, I see why Baron was a 4-star recruit. I see why he's the highest ranked quarterback they've ever signed. He's just tremendously gifted, and he certainly seems to have that gamer mentality. You know, Zach Kitley says, he goes, I'd love to see him be more consistent in practice, but he certainly turns it on Saturday. If this game was in Waco, I don't know that I feel some different. I think with it being a night game in Lubbock, those always get hairy. And especially now it's going to be sold out. You never know when you go to a night game at the Jones how it's going to turn out. So I think probably gives Tech a slight edge, and they were a really, really good home atmosphere when Tech got that upset against Texas. I think if Baylor had that at home, you obviously would feel a little bit better. But I think these two staffs are going to know each other, at least from the head coaching standpoint, know each other so well because Joey was part of that program. Obviously, Dave knows Joey, and so much of what Tech has done under McGuire has been built off the Baylor blueprint. I think this is going to be a compelling game no matter. You could put it in AT&T Stadium like they did for a while, and I think it'd still be really compelling.
Sam, there's always this graphic that people have on certain fan bases or about certain teams, and there's always been this roller coaster graphic of A&M climbing the roller coaster, kind of making progress, and then about mid-year it starts going down, and then at the end the roller coaster has no rails. They're gone. And this year, yet again, in fact, it happened even earlier with even higher expectations. Your thoughts about where they are? Jimbo's got a massive buyout. He's not going anywhere. But the disaster that's going on right now in College Station.
Boy, these next few weeks and months are going to be really, really important in this program because I think you are in real danger of this thing going completely off the rails. And I don't mean in this season. Like, this season has obviously been far below expectations. We were sitting at 3-4 when you started the season in the preseason top 10. But I mean and I'm talking about long-term belief in the program and the direction you're going. They've got to find a way to finish a little bit stronger this year, number one. Get to the postseason, because, gosh, if they miss the postseason and go 5-7, I mean, what kind of disaster are we talking about? What does that mean for recruiting? That's another question. But also, what does Jimbo Fisher do this offseason? Does he actually look in the mirror and assess the need to change the offense, whether it's changing it himself, whether it's hiring an offensive coordinator, whether it's hiring somebody like what LSU did with Joe Brady? Maybe he's not the play caller, but somebody to come in and provide a different vision and some different eyes and advice and perspective that can modernize your offense a little bit. I think it's serious to me because defensively, I think they're a good team, but they haven't scored 30 points against an FBS team since last October. It's been almost a full year since they scored 30 points against an FBS team. And that's a problem. It's especially a problem in the SEC, and they're going up against an Ole Miss team that scores a lot of points this week. So, and then I haven't even gotten to the suspensions that they had this week, which are another issue. But they have got so much talent on that roster, and I think if you don't find a way to right the ship here in the next few weeks and then make the right off-season moves that you need to make, I think it really puts in peril the trajectories that this program was on before the season, which seemed to be one that was heading toward competing for a college football playoff in the years to come.
Sam, Andy Sables had a great column on it on your site yesterday about, but the A&M administration can't, like, who can go to him and say, you have to do this? I mean, he has all the power given the massive amount of that buyout.
Nobody can. That's the thing. You cannot. He has the keys to the kingdom. They made that clear. And when they gave him that, I even wrote that last year, right? They gave him that extension before the season last year, proactively to kind of fend off the LSU overtures should they come and should LSU had fired at Orgeron, which of course happened. And LSU and Scott Woodward definitely were kicking those tires on Jimbo Fisher late in the season to try in the midst of their coaching search. So they did that, and so they gave him those extra years to take him to 10 more years guaranteed. And so you put yourself in this position. He can do whatever he wants. Now, that said, I don't think he's going to purposely not make changes. He's a really competitive guy, and I think he wants to succeed. And so I'm certain he's going to try to do something. But he's also a stubborn guy. And he won a national championship calling plays. So I can understand why he would look himself in the mirror and say, you know what? I won a national championship as a play caller and running the offense. I certainly can figure it out myself. And that's one of the things I think is really hard when you've been successful, admit that what you're doing is not working and acknowledge that you need change. That's really hard. Is he willing to do that? I have no idea. I have no idea if he's willing to go that far. But I know A&M fans and alumni are certainly hopeful that he's introspecting enough to realize that they're going to need to do something.
Sam, it was one thing when the quarterback room kind of evaporated under Kevin Sumlin. They obviously were just playing a little too free and loose with, what they were getting in talent-wise and egos and all of that. But what do you make of the way the quarterback room is currently constructed? And do you feel like they hit on their analysis, or is that part of the issue? What's part of the issue to where a program like this doesn't seem to have a guy at that spot?
Yeah, I think part of the issue is the offense. It's Jimbo, because look at the list of guys he's recruited post Jameis Winston. There is nobody there that is. I think since 2016 that he hasn't had an all-conference passer, like a first-team all-conference guy, whether it was at Florida State or at Texas A&M. So we're talking 6-7 years now that stretch is gone. All those guys, and this is just my opinion, but they can't be that all those guys are missing. Like, it can't be that all those guys can't play. There's something lost in transition because other big-time programs offered the guys that Jimbo has signed. And I look at this current room, I watch Haynes King, and I think he's a really talented guy. Part of it is the team issues. Like, they allow more pressure statistically than any other team in the country. Right? They've allowed pressure on like 45% of their dropbacks. So that's number one. But the other offensive issues is it takes a long time for guys to grasp this. Like, the best A&M quarterback that Jimbo has had is Kellen Mond, somebody who he inherited. And it was really the third year that Mond was in the offense that he finally looked like a really good quarterback. So if you have to sit around and wait for guys to develop 2-3 years to get there, that's just not a winning formula. I personally think King is talented, and I think Connor Wegman, the 5-star freshman who got in the game late last week, and you would think A&M fans are hoping they want to see here down the stretch, I think he's a terrific talent too. But if you're not making it easier on your guys with pre-snap motion, with easy throws, with progressions that are not super deep and don't take a long time, especially with the protection issues you have, if you don't make it easier on your guys, then yeah, everybody's gonna be trying to tread water running this offense. So that's why I go back and it's like, so do I don't know if it's how much of it is a quarterback evaluation issue and how much of it is a Jimbo offense issue, but I lean more toward the latter.
Sam Kahn, theathletic.com on college football. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and I'm David Smoak. Sam, if you right now, and I know that we kind of know at least now, where Georgia, Ohio State, I know Clemson's unbeaten in their schedule. They still have a couple of bumps in the road perhaps, but do you see 4 elite teams right now in college football?
Yeah, I think Georgia and Ohio State certainly. I mean, Ohio State's schedule is kind of hard to say.
Yeah.
Tennessee, what they've done, I mean, gosh, it's really hard. It's really hard to knock what they've done, especially after the Alabama win. And Josh Heupel, gosh, look how quickly he's turned that around. Remember what they looked like when all those players were transferring out a couple of years ago after the Pruitt firing. It's amazing what they've done. Are they an elite? They certainly have recruited that way. So I think they have to be close. And then Alabama obviously still has that talent, but obviously they have issues because they've lost. But Clemson, they had to battle and come back against Syracuse. Like, are they in that Georgia-Ohio State stratosphere? Probably not. Or is TCU in that stratosphere? Probably not. Michigan I haven't watched as much of, so it's hard for me to say. But yeah, I don't know that we have 4 elite teams. I think we definitely have 2, maybe 3 if you want to count Tennessee. Like I said, I have to watch Michigan a little bit more. I don't watch a ton of Big Ten football. They punt too much for me. But I certainly think we have a lot of good teams, and I think the playoff race is going to be really compelling, especially if TCU can keep winning, and if that's the only hiccup for Alabama, it's going to get really compelling down the stretch.
Well, if it is, that means that they end up running the table in the West, which also means against LSU in 2 weeks, and also means against Ole Miss, who we don't know what's going to happen with them after they were beaten pretty badly. And that means that perhaps that they end up winning the SEC championship, which as if they get there, which, of course, is interesting. Here's one from Michael K. 19th C fan on, Sam, what you said. Tennessee and Georgia are really the only proven legitimate teams. The Ohio State right now, and you kind of said this, you didn't say it this way, is pure eye candy elite.
Well, yes, that's true. But I mean, they have the talent. I think there's no question. But yes, they have not been tested in any real way. And so is Penn State going to be that test this weekend? Perhaps. But I mean, the history there suggests that, I don't know how much it will be. And then after that, Northwestern, Indiana, Maryland, then you don't really get tested again until Michigan. So they could, whether or not we feel like they're elite based on their schedule, they got a really good shot to be 12-0 going to the Big Ten championship game and running the table. So whether or not they are, like I said, their schedule certainly is not what Tennessee's or Alabama's is going to end up being. But I mean, that's just kind of life right now. That's kind of the way it's set up when you're in a Big Ten that seems to be a little bit down this year.
Sam, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Sam Kahn, theathletic.com, college football, writes a bunch about everything in the South, but also covers quite a bit of the Big 12, but also he had the story on what's going on at Texas A&M and gave us some feedback on that. The poll on the most must-win, and maybe it's because that we have covered Baylor for a long, long time, and a lot of our followers might be that way on Twitter. Right now, the Baylor-Texas Tech game, and Jared said, I feel like every game the rest of the season for Baylor is a must-win. No gimmies left. Blew our last easy game. Don't feel we're at must-wins yet for K-State or Oklahoma State, so he doesn't think either one of them is a must-win. But again, look at it nationally, and there's a one team, especially with TCU in Morgantown after they got blown out by Texas Tech, and now they have an explosive team in TCU coming to town this weekend. This is 365 Sports. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas Marketplace in Waco, just off of I-35. Dr. Rob Maxey and the partners have put together a phenomenal place to help you. Help you in 2 different ways, and one of them is whatever is hurting you, a ligament, a muscle, something else that your doctor wants an MRI. Ideal MRI has state-of-the-art technology. I've been inside their MRI machine. It's going to find whatever they're looking for, and if they don't see anything, that probably is good news. And maybe it's not quite as bad of an injury. But if it's in an MRI, they're going to find it. If it's a torn ligament, MCL, ACL, PCL, whatever it might be, torn shoulder, rotator cuff, bicep. And then on top of that, they're going to also make sure they save you a ton of money. A ton of money. Average MRI is $1,100, so that means there's some that are higher than that. Your insurance maybe helps cover part of that. But with Ideal MRI, insurance or not, it's $497 every single time. And then the insurance might kick in. They'll help you with that, and it could be less. How about that? An MRI for $497 or less every single time. IdealMRI.com.
The wait is over. Richard Carr GMC has the trucks. 2022 GMC Sierras have hit the lot, and they're waiting for you. Sierra trucks offer best-in-class towing, strong steel beds, multi-pro tailgates, and advanced features that make driving a Sierra second to none. Trucks are waiting for you to test drive now. So call now, log in now, or get here now and drive your next truck today at Richard Carr.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Max Olson has been doing this. It comes to defense. The stop rate in college football through the last weekend of college football. And there's Michigan, not a surprise. San Jose State, number 2. Illinois, we've discussed them with Brett Bielema. Ohio State, they're putting up a bunch of points, but they're also playing, and of course, they have the new coordinator from Oklahoma State and what he's done. Then you have Georgia, not a surprise. Alabama, kind of a surprise to me. because they've given up a lot of points, especially to Tennessee. Maybe just that game is one that pops out. Then there's Big 12's Iowa State. Pretty much in every game, but just always a play or two short. James Madison getting a lot of love this year. Boise State. And then at the bottom, you have Marshall, who beat Notre Dame. And then since that time, they've kind of flattened off a little bit. Anybody on that list that surprises you?
Yeah, Boise State, a little bit. I mean, I know Andy Avalos is a, big-time defensive dude, but, right in there 5-2 now. They've kind of rallied.
They've definitely rallied.
Yeah, but it does surprise me because it's not really in their history been their MO. Usually they've been kind of a more of a kind of a wild offensive team. But yeah, they're 5-2 now. He's righted the ship, but yeah, they surprised me a little bit.
Craig?
I mean, they have been more of an offensive team, but Hank Bachmeier's a quarterback, and he's the one going to the portal mid-year. So, I mean, I think that goes to show you what the problem is in Boise, Idaho, or what the problem was. And now you suddenly see a little bit of a turning of the sails ever since that happened. But, yeah, I mean, I guess it's just interesting to see that. I mean, I'm not surprised, obviously, to Iowa State or Georgia or an Alabama. I mean, maybe Alabama that high to some extent, but I don't know. Like, there's so many numbers used in college football now. Like, I don't know. I just saw another new formula today for determining how games are decided, and it's like the 15th one that I've seen develop over the last year. So I don't know what to believe anymore as far as all that goes. I just resort back to just gut most of the time, and that gets me a little bit above 500. So that's a win, right? Just to be a little bit over 500. So that's all I'm going for. But yeah, I mean, there's so many numbers now, and hey, I love it for those that love numbers. I've never been a numbers guy. I've never been a math guy, so I start seeing like this formula and that formula, and it's all these graphs get very confusing to me because it's just not my forte. So yeah, I see stuff like that, and I admire it, and I appreciate those who can appreciate those and get a deeper meaning out of it. I get some stuff out of some of these things, but there's just so much to kind of digest and take away that I ultimately fall back on just kind of the bare bones of what I feel like I know and what I've watched and, what some of the numbers say. But, yeah, for, stop rate, I know that Max has been pointing that out for a while. I mean, it is a good indicator of, a certain part of your defense. And, to see those teams there and knowing the kind of defense they play, I don't think it's that surprising.
Garrett, if you wouldn't mind, I know we're up against the top of the hour, and we have Pete Mundo from Heartland Sports coming up at 4. Scott Drew at 4:45. He's among the newest names who will be inducted into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. There's some big names. Priest Holmes, former Texas running back, is one of them. So go back to that again, the stop rate. So Michigan, we know they're playing well. Down to number at the bottom, Marshall, they're 4-3. They're I looked at there and I was like, wait a minute, Marshall just beat James Madison, kept them to 12.
That was a big win. James Madison got off to a hot start, but they've kind of fallen off not to the wayside, but they've fallen a little bit, taken a couple lumps. And yeah, Marshall this past weekend was one of those a little bit surprising.
Their last 4 games, they've given up 16, 7, 23, and then 12. They lost to Louisiana 23-13.
You know what Marshall's big deal is, though? They've got really good running backs, and they run the ball really well. So their offense also helps their defense probably more than most. But because they run the ball exceptionally well. But bunch of transfers back there, all working out for them.
San Jose State is 4-2, 2-1 in the Mountain West. Boise State atop that. As you mentioned a little earlier this year, we're thinking, they're in a free fall. They've won, as you've mentioned, 5 in a row, 3 games in a row, I guess, and 4-0 in the conference right there. Iowa State's got a losing record, but it's in the Big 12, these one-score games, and this year they're on the wrong end of it, and right now trying to look for their first win as they host Oklahoma. All right, when we come back, we will hear from Pete Mundo. He covers. He covers Heartland Sports, covers college football. I was on earlier today with him on his show. He's also a program director at a station in Kansas City. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace. They've got some steaks on sale this week. I love steaks. Earlier today, I was doing the high school podcast with Reggie Samples, and I'd heard he's a big connoisseur of steaks. One of his assistant coaches told me that. I asked him, Yeah, he likes the bone-in ribeye like I do, and maybe like you do. In fact, they have ribeye steaks available. Select at $9.50 a pound. Choice ribeye at $12.25 a pound, and the prime ribeye is at $22.99 a pound. Pork spare ribs and St. Louis style ribs, $2.25 and $3.50 a pound. Baby back pork ribs at $3.15 a pound. Chicken breast at $1.75 a pound. And let me tell you something. I defrosted one yesterday in the refrigerator, got home, cooked it, and it is plump, it is huge, and it is absolutely delicious. Breakfast sausage patties, $2.50 a pound. They have tiger shrimp, the 8 to 12 in a pound tiger shrimp for $13.50 a pound. It's a great way to put something on the grill that's a little bit different. Plus, they have the Gulf shrimp on sale. And they have, of course, what you need when it comes to tailgate, including charcoal, pellet fuel, whatever you need, seasoned seasonings, and even marinade. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the City of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including bar, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com. Call us at 254-753-7675 or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
We'll run the speed option. And Rose is in for 6. It started to look like a speed option, then it looked like quarterback power right behind Quaylon Jones.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
4 o'clock hour, we start with Pete Mundo, again, Heartland College Sports, and I was on with him earlier today. They have a podcast, the Heartland College Sports. Go and subscribe to it. Like it if you can. Watch what they do, the content as they cover the Big 12 and college football. Pete, thanks for your time with Paul, Craig, and Smokey. You and I talked quite a bit about Baylor, but we asked this question earlier about, of the 4 games, TCU's at West Virginia, Oklahoma State at Kansas State, Baylor at Tech, and then Oklahoma and Iowa State. Of those 4 games, is there a specific team that you think this week has even more of a must-win than anybody else?
Wow, that is a great question, guys. So, must-win, I mean, I look at Baylor, to be honest. Because if Baylor loses this game to Texas Tech, the hopes of repeating as Big 12 champs is over. It's done. It's really not going to happen if they lose this game to Texas Tech on Saturday. So, I for the last couple of weeks, it's been trendy to say, okay, I like TCU, Oklahoma State 2 weeks ago was the best game. Last week, I like Oklahoma, Texas. It's trendy to say that, but with how loaded and unpredictable the Big 12 is, I've been looking at a lot of these games as elimination games the last 2 weeks. Last week, I thought Baylor-Kansas was the most intriguing game because the winner of that game is feeling like, okay, we still got a chance in this Big 12 race that is topsy-turvy. The loser is like, okay, this isn't going to be our year. We're just out of the race at this point. And I look at that Tech-Baylor game as kind of the same way this week. It's an elimination game for the Big 12 championship race. If Tech wins it, I mean, they become right up there with Kansas as the surprise team in the Big 12. And if Baylor wins it, you're saying, okay, you've lost some games this year, but you put together a couple in a row. And you're still in the thick of the Big 12 championship hunt with, a handful of games left in the final months of the season. So I really think it's this elimination game between Tech and Baylor that's the most intriguing to me in Big 12 play this weekend.
Do you think the loser of that game will have trouble getting to 6 wins?
Oh, boy. Smokey and I were talking about that earlier. This is what's great about the Big 12. And the answer to that is yes, simply because you can make a case for just about every team in the Big 12, at least 7 or 8 of them, to win the rest of their games or to lose the rest of their games. And that's what has made this, to me, in 25, 30 years of Big 12 football, the most intriguing year. I don't know, and I don't think there's a college football playoff team in this league, and the national media is going to do what the national media does and poo-poo that and try to get 2 SEC teams in there and do what they do. But top to bottom, this is, and the advanced metrics show this. This isn't me being a Big 12 homer. The advanced metrics show the Big 12 and the SEC are right there as the best conferences and the deepest conferences in America. And I think we're watching that play out. And here we are, the final week in October, and you can still make a case for almost half the league in a best-case scenario to make a conference championship game. There's not another league in America that comes close to having that conversation right now. And that's why, this is an awesome time to be a Big 12 fan.
Pete, plenty of times in the past, Morgantown has been a place where teams with championship dreams go to die. I think of, a big Baylor loss they had years ago, a big Kevin White game that, crushed their hopes of playing for a national title. And there's been plenty of other examples over the years. Not quite that same, sense surrounding Neil Brown right now, but they do have TCU coming in unbeaten at number 7. Just your feel for this game and, TCU right now getting that win last week, how well you see the Frogs' position at the moment.
Well, I think they're in a great position for this weekend, not because, it can't be a trap game and they can't trip up after a couple of big wins. They came back from double digits down to beat Oklahoma State after being down 17. You're down 18 to K-State. You come back, you win. At some point, that's going to come back to bite you. I just can't see it being this weekend in Morgantown. Neil Brown, it's really an indictment on this coaching staff, the way they played as of late, especially on the road. They were down 28-0 to Texas before you blinked. The way they played this past weekend against Tech, they should have lost 48-3. That's embarrassing. This is not a program that talent gap is a 38-point difference with Texas Tech. It's just not. And I know they got the win over Baylor, on that Thursday night, but if Blake Shapen doesn't get injured in that game, they probably lose that game. So the fans aren't showing up. Neil Brown kind of quasi called out the fans after that Thursday win against Baylor. He said something like, for the fans that showed up, it was a great night. The fan base has completely turned on Neil Brown. He does not have a program-defining win in 4+ seasons. Now, I guess he could get it on Saturday, but here's the thing. Even if he wins this game, Neil Brown's not going bowling. Like, he's not going to get to a bowl game this year, barring some miracle the last few weeks of the season. And I just don't know, unless you don't want to pay the buyout, what you see with Neil Brown. It's one of those things where if it's not working, you got to cut bait in college football. And I don't know what more you'd have to see at a Neil Brown to feel like you've got the right guy and the program's going in the right direction to break this streak of mediocrity. So normally I'd say yes, Morgantown, tough spot, tough place to play. But I think the fan base is checked out. I think they're sending a message to that administration. So I don't see them showing up in full force and being all juiced on Saturday. I would be surprised by that. So I'm really not too concerned about TCU in this game.
Yeah, they were down 30-16 to Oklahoma State, 28-10 to Kansas State, and it seems like they don't even blink, where that could sometimes you could, start to push or press and make mistakes, and they just keep coming at you. They're like a cat with 9 lives.
That's right, Smokey, they are. And, one thing about Sonny Dykes is he does have a tendency, his teams, especially at SMU, had a tendency to start off hot and then kind of, falter down the stretch. And you don't want to be in these double-digit holes and expect this team to come back to win. But here's the other thing, and I think Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State fell into this trap a couple of weeks ago, less so against K-State. I mean, they're on their third-string quarterback. What are you going to do? But I think Mike Gundy and Casey Dunn at Oklahoma State a couple of weeks ago kind of, all right, backed off. We're up 17 in the second quarter. Let's ride this thing to a win. It's not Gary Patterson's team. I mean, if you were up 17 on Gary Patterson, it was probably over. Sonny Dykes has a much more explosive offense. Max Duggan is as confident as he's ever been at that quarterback position for TCU, and they're not going to let up. You've got Kendre Miller, maybe the most underrated and under-talked about, at least skill position guy in the Big 12 at running back. He's second in the league in touchdowns this year behind Bijan Robinson. He's got actually more yards per carry than Bijan or Deuce Vaughn. So he's, to me, the most underappreciated guy in this league at running back. And you get a guy like Quentin Johnson on the outside, you can do some serious damage. You want to get off to better starts, especially on the road like this weekend. But this TCU team has far exceeded my expectations, and I expect a solid victory for them on Saturday.
Which team's trainers will be busier, Oklahoma State's or Kansas State's, in two teams that are really banged up and really want to win this game to keep pace in the championship race on Saturday?
Oh, man. I got to roll with K-State there. I mean, just because the quarterback position alone. I guess we'll find out more tomorrow on if Adrian Martinez has a shot to go on Saturday. If not, it sounds like it will be Will Howard. But they can't win a game. They can't win this game, at least, with Jake Rubley at quarterback, their third straight guy. And, he came in with high expectations. He was a 4-star recruit, but it just really hasn't panned out in the handful of appearances that Jake Rubley's had. So, and frankly, I don't love their chances with Will Howard in this game either. I just think Oklahoma State's defense is going to figure out a way to bottle him up. There's a reason they got Adrian Martinez in the offseason, and that's partially because they don't think Will Howard can be the guy to, take him to a Big 12 championship game in Manhattan. And frankly, I don't either. I thought he played well when he came in last week for Martinez, but he's not a guy to me that can win them this game against an Oklahoma State team that, as much as I know they lost to TCU, I still think blow for blow, that's right up there with any team in the Big 12 and should be a team that has as good a chance as anybody to win this league down the home stretch. You've got a veteran quarterback, a guy who's, been through the battles before in Spencer Sanders, and a guy who I think is the most underrated and underappreciated coach in America in Mike Gundy.
Iowa State, unable to get any conference wins at this point, but have Oklahoma walking in. Granted, Dylan Gabriel makes a difference for the Sooners, and we saw that with his return, but I don't know, Pete. This might be like the most fascinating game, not as far as hype or national attention goes, but this is a really interesting game to me with Iowa State and Oklahoma and Ames this weekend.
I completely agree. I mean, think about the storylines. If Iowa State loses, they fall to 0-5 in Big 12 play. And, I mean, nobody should question Matt Campbell. I mean, what Matt Campbell has done at Iowa State, no one ever predicted was possible at Iowa State. But 0-5 is still 0-5. I mean, that's a bit, even if it's all these close losses, a field goal either way, whatever, it doesn't matter. 0-5 is 0-5. Then if they get that win, and, Matt Campbell's played Oklahoma well, going back to his program-defining win in, I guess it would have been 2017, when they were 38-point underdogs and, beat OU in that miraculous game. He's played OU well, and you got to think, okay, off a bye week, at home, desperate for a victory, a great defense. Oklahoma's got no defense on their end. Why not? I mean, I'm still not sold on Brent Venables, despite the fact that they, beat Kansas a couple of weeks ago. So if Oklahoma loses, they're sitting at 1-4 in Big 12 play, and the conversation around Brent Venables gets even more interesting just because of what Oklahoma football's been for 2 decades. So I completely agree. No one's going to talk about that game nationally, but in the Big 12, the storylines around that OU Iowa State game are fascinating. Coming out of it based on who wins and who loses. I love that game for the reasons just laid out.
Bijan Robinson gets a lot of credit. He's a great player. He's phenomenal. I'd like to see him even get more carries. But is there anyone in the Big 12 right now who you think is a legitimate Heisman contender?
No. I mean, there isn't. Listen, let's just call it like it is. Being a quarterback of a team that's at a blue blood and in the top 5 helps. Now, could Max Duggan make a case? He's the guy I saw when I looked at the Heisman odds that technically has the best odds, I believe, in the Big 12 at like 50-1 to win a Heisman Trophy. But let's just be honest, for a TCU player to win a Heisman Trophy, it has to be the season of all seasons. For a player at TCU to win a Heisman Trophy. And I think Max Duggan is great, but, barring something unforeseen in terms of what he puts together the second half of the season, I don't see it. But it gets back to the bigger story here. I don't think there's a Heisman contender in the Big 12. I don't think there's a college football playoff team in the Big 12, as much as TCU's sitting there pretty undefeated at, number 7 in the country at this point. But they're going to find a way, I think, ultimately, to hose this league and not give this league the credit that I believe it deserves for the year that it's having. I just think TCU is going to lose a game at some point. If they lose 2, I wouldn't be shocked. I think the Big 12 champ will ultimately have 2 losses, and the 2-loss team is never getting in out of the Big 12 conference. It's just not going to happen. You've got this perfect storm showing up in the SEC with Alabama and Tennessee and Georgia and, whoever plays out of the SEC for the SEC championship, the loser's going to have 1 loss. It'll be a good loss. What does the committee do with that team? We've seen the story happen before. So I do not think that there is a Heisman contender in the Big 12. And, I don't think anyone's going to build up that kind of hype the next few weeks.
Yeah, Pete, let's face it. If a Big 12 team has 1 loss, they're behind it, no matter who that loss is to or when, because, they're just behind it. That's how it's been.
Absolutely. I mean, and, you don't have to remind TCU fans of being, number 3 in the country in 2014, blowing out Iowa State 55-3 and falling to number 6 out of the playoff picture. Now, the Big 12 was stupid and screwed itself from the get-go not having a conference championship game when they went down to 10 teams. That was dumb planning for a multitude of reasons we don't have to relitigate. But still, when you are number 3 in the country, you win a game 55-3 and you drop to number 6, I understand TCU fans and, frankly, all Big 12 fans being incredibly salty based on how this playoff system has worked the last nearly decade.
Pete, the Big 12 moving forward, Brett Yormark has discussed, in fact, a week ago that there could be some news in the next couple of weeks on a TV deal. Yesterday he was in Waco. I asked him the same question, and it seemed like it wasn't quite as emphatic, although Mack Rhodes joined us, Baylor's AD, and he said, no, I don't think it would be a surprise if something's not released in the next couple of weeks. What do you think will happen? Do you think they're going to have something to announce in a couple of weeks?
Well, I'll take Yormark at his word on that. I mean, he was pretty emphatic at Big 12 Media Days last week about it in Kansas City, talking about that very issue. And, I mean, I get it. I understand it if he continues with ESPN and Fox. But I do question it. I mean, we know where ESPN's loyalties are going to be. It's going to be to the SEC, 1, 2, and 3. It's going to be to the Big Ten. And my fear is that the Big 12 ends up with a lot of those kind of ESPN Plus games, which I'm okay with, but it makes it, first off, selfishly, it makes it hard to kind of channel surf when you got one game on ESPN Plus. But I just worry as well that, their loyalty is going to be to the SEC and the Big 12 not going to get that love from ESPN that, frankly, I believe it will deserve. And, I would hate to see Brett Yormark. I'd hate to see the Big 12 end up in this, long-term contract and then wondering where the love is, where the promotion is, and where the attention is for the Big 12 conference. And my fear is that very well could happen. I mean, I know that, the other networks have hopped on in different ways with some of the other leagues. But if there's inventory with an NBC, if there's still inventory with CBS, it looks like Fox will be involved in some capacity. But I'd be looking there. Heck, TNT, Turner Sports, do they want to get into the college football game? They've done a great job on the NBA side of things. I would just, and we know Brett Yormark's an NBA guy, I would just keep some of those options open. But you know what? I'm not behind the scenes. I don't know what deal's on the table. And I do, trust Yormark to have this very good and strong vision for the Big 12. He clearly knows what he wants to do. He understands the TV market and the TV game and industry very well. The people around him do. That's kind of his specialty and bread and butter. So I'm willing to trust him, but I am not going to trust ESPN with how they've treated this league and just go back to Bob Bowlesby. And Bob Bowlesby basically telling ESPN to shove it with how some of that realignment stuff went last year. It was the best thing that Bowlesby did before the Big 12 nearly collapsed, and thank goodness it didn't about 1 year ago. So I am hesitant to trust him, but I do trust Brett Yormark and his vision for the conference, and I'm willing to think if he thinks he's got a really good deal in front of him for the short and long term, then let's roll.
All right. Now, tell everybody about, again, the Heartland Sports YouTube page. We have what we do every afternoon, 3 to 6. You have what you do. So it's at Pete Mundo, M-U-N-D-O, on Twitter. But let us know a little bit about, and some of our chat room people watch what you do as well in your podcast.
Yeah, well, I appreciate all that you guys do, not just obviously covering Baylor, but the Big 12 and college football in general. And, I'm up here in Kansas City, started Heartland College Sports now 8 years ago after spending time working in media in Oklahoma and then New York City, and now out here doing radio as well in Kansas City. But to me, in case you couldn't tell, I love this league. I don't think it gets the attention it deserves nationally. And Heartland College Sports started off as me with a laptop, and now we've got a full staff. We're reaching, millions of Big 12 fans every month on the website, on our podcast, and growing that YouTube page as well. So we appreciate you guys and everything that your fans and followers can do to check us out on all those different platforms. So I consider us kind of teammates from that respect of promoting this league, and we appreciate what you guys do as well.
Thank you, Pete. Appreciate it. Have a great week. We'll speak with you soon.
You bet, guys. Thanks so much.
Pete Mundo, again, at Heartland Sports. He's also a PD, as he mentioned, in Kansas City. Joins us to discuss college football. We appreciate what he does. And, again, it's kind of like with the Big 12 when they went through the July 2021, everybody, the 8 remaining, at least the teams, the programs, the universities, even fan bases, I know pointing in different directions, looking at different directions, but it was all about you better stay together. And for the most part, everybody has. And same thing with a lot of the college football podcasts that are out there right now. We started ours in April of 2020, and it has been a great journey, an incredible journey, and many others who have also been able to start their own, and we wish them all an incredible journey and the luck as well. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, October, of course, winding down. And I remember I was talking with Lexi Gardner, who does a lot of the marketing for Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Ted Teague, the general manager. And there's always something, offers, discounts, incentives, based on what you're looking for. And yet again, there's just the fundamentals. They're really good at what they do. They have a lot of vehicles on their lot. During Ram Power Days, you'll find a great selection, amazing deals, competitive financing. Ask whoever you get in touch with when you're there to give you what is the rundown. In fact, yesterday, I've told you about AJ, who was the one who helped me find the car that I drive, a pre-owned car on the lot at Allen Samuels. He called me yesterday. We talked a little bit of sports, and he also called me and asked me about everything with my car that I'm doing. And I got a text message today that it's time for me to go get the maintenance, get the oil changed, and get that done. It's fantastic, a great place to work with. The Ram Power Days, Freedom Days for Jeep, and what they do with the Cherokee, the Grand Cherokee L, the Renegade, the Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. There's the Dodge Charger and Challenger that can bring you the style, incredible deal you deserve. Come out today and see the good people. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler, Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
1, 2.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. He keeps me coming back. He cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. Last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
All right, on Twitter again, at David Smoak. And who, in your opinion, has the biggest must-win this week in the Big 12 Conference? Initially, it was a big landslide with Baylor and Texas Tech. It's still the leader, nearly 58%, but Oklahoma State, Kansas State, 22%, TCU, West Virginia, almost 12%, and then Oklahoma, Iowa State at just over 8%.
Craig's point earlier that his TCU is the best one, and, if you're talking about inside the Big 12 and like winning that, then no. But as far as the national picture for TCU, it's really important. It's really important for this league to get in some CFPs.
What have we been saying?
We've been saying that.
It's only Oklahoma or bust. And they get in there and they can't win it. And,
So it's important. They've got to keep their national hopes alive. And it's really important for TCU to keep winning because they have no margin for error because they're TCU. I mean, there's no Alabama get a mulligan. They might even get 2 1 year. They don't have that. There are not many teams that do, and because they're not like Oklahoma would get a mulligan, Texas would get a mulligan, but nobody else in the league will. So for all the teams that you're talking about, like Baylor and Texas Tech, it's important, but if a team – if Baylor doesn't go to a bowl game this year or Texas Tech winds up not going to a bowl game this year, Dave Aranda's not going anywhere, Joe McGuire's not going anywhere. They're not program-changing losses, but TCU could have continual program-changing wins on down the line.
Yeah, and shout out to Chad on Twitter, the Red Raiders fan who I've gone back with a couple of times, who understands now that my whole talk about Texas and Baylor is not from a Tech fan perspective. It's not saying this is the biggest game Tech fans have ever gone to. It's all about the coaches on these two staffs and the meaning moving forward. And I felt like I made that clear, but that's where the personal stuff comes in. Not like personal hatred or anything, but that's where the fire for this game comes from. Yeah, there's not a lot of people excited about 2, 4, and 3 teams kicking off on Saturday night. But for the people involved, you mean to tell me this isn't like the biggest game they played in a while? It means a lot, man. It means a lot. There's personal stuff there, like not angsty, but just, egos and program stuff and things like that matter moving forward between these two teams because they're just like their records. They're very similar and they're very eye to eye. And that's why for Joey McGuire and his staff and for Dave Aranda and his staff, this is an important game, but I will go back, and I know there's plenty of other games across the country to talk about as well, but I do just want to circle back to Oklahoma and Iowa State. That is a really interesting game that no one's going to care about outside those two fan bases, but, and no playoff implications or even really Big 12 implications. So just as far as a throwaway kind of a game with no, great meaning behind it, that's an interesting game because imagine Oklahoma being 1-4 in Big 12 play.
Because if they win, then they piece a couple of games together. Then they have Baylor at home next week. Who knows? And so you never know. Maybe they get a little bit of mojo. Not saying elite national level, no, but a little mojo.
And on the flip side, Matt Campbell potentially 0-5 in Big 12 play when he's Mr. Hot coaching candidate every year. So for those reasons, I find that interesting. I'm not going to say it's exciting or it's some big game, but it's interesting from that standpoint that somebody's going to go further in the gutter. And it's been a while since Iowa State's been there, and Oklahoma's never been there. So something's got to give. But, yeah, I mean, there's a good slate, and there's a great national slate as well. This is going to be a fun weekend. This season, I mean, guys, there's a little over a month left.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing has –
Yeah, I mean, you got 6 games left at least, and if you go to a bowl game and a conference championship game, you might have a couple
We got 3 months left in that case. I mean, we got 3 months to talk more. And this show, we talk college football year round because there's recruiting and coaching carousel and all of that. But the regular season, we look up and say this every time about this time. It's flying by. And, tomorrow night we'll get a couple games and have a full slate, and it'll be fun. And just hopefully it keeps living up to, the previous weekends because we've had some good stuff going on.
We'll have Scott Drew in 15 minutes. One of the things about the question, again, it's not even so much the game, but what individual team faces the biggest must-win. Scotty B on the text line, 254-339-1122. He's in the chat room a lot, too. I can name a few teams, but I feel like it's Kansas State because the rest of the schedule is Texas in Manhattan, Baylor in Waco, West Virginia, Morgantown, Kansas back in Manhattan. Can you put up the poll, Garrett? Does that show any of the responses? If not, I want to read some of them. Even Curtis Quillen from the NBC station here in Waco, he put up the Oklahoma-Iowa State game is certified anxiety bowl. From Aranda Stan, Matt Rule's Smoak is his title. Has to be the winner of Oklahoma State. Kansas State winner controls their own destiny. Loser has hope for some chaos, has to hope for some chaos. If it's Kansas State that loses, though, that means they've lost to both TCU and Oklahoma State, which also means they have to get to a certain level to overcome those tiebreakers.
They don't need just chaos. They need certain types of chaos to happen, and that's really difficult.
Jake Shaw, I'm sure mostly Baylor fans are replying because of your following, but to me it's Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Loser will have lost the tiebreakers to both TCU and then whoever they lose to, of course, if it's Oklahoma State, will be very hard for that game loser to make the Big 12 title game. And then Jared said, I feel like every game the rest of the year, I think I read this one, is a must-win for Baylor if they want to anywhere get close to the expectations, which they've already gone over that level because last year they were 12-2. Right now, they are 4-3.
I think the tough pill to swallow for Baylor, and there's I think, plenty of room to feel disappointed. I don't think you have to be extreme one way or the other, where, like, hey, they don't make a bowl game, complete failure. I mean, look, that would be a pretty big failure, though. Like, I mean, it really would, given the lines that you had coming back. I understand now, all of the skill position vacancies have added up and been a big part of the problem. I mean, you see that offensively, how they struggled. You see that in the back end of their defense, how they struggled. But, I mean, to have, like, 10-plus guys across your offensive and defensive line, not just guys, but, like, starters, all are going to vanish after this year. I mean, that's not insignificant. Like, they're going to have to rebuild both of their offensive and defensive lines next year. So it just came to a time where they had everything last year, and then they had half of what they had. And, I don't know what they're going to have next year because there's so much that has to unfold, transfer portal and all those different types of things. But I think when you've got that many guys coming back up front, no matter how you think the college game, what it runs through and all of those things, that's significant. So to not be able to capitalize on that, I think would be a major disappointment. And that's just where I'm coming from with that. I get why they struggle and, they're growing and everything. But to have those guys coming back, plus your quarterback, I mean, I get it, but
we've discussed this. We've asked coaches this. We've asked Dave Aranda this. We asked coaches at Media Day this. If you could pick 3 things you'd want coming back, it'd be your depth and experience on the offensive and defensive lines and your returning starting quarterback.
Yeah, and look, if you want to go through the list of, I don't want to say average, but like guys who are not athletic superstars at quarterback, who put up ridiculous numbers and even won Heisman trophies because of their offensive line. Look,
Dorsey,
Gino Torretta. Look, Jason White. Winky. Jason White had bum knees.
Yep.
He had terrible knees. But guess what never happened to Jason White? He never really got lit up. He was comfortable back there. So there have been guys who've won or had a huge season because they just looked out there and were like, no, I'm not going to get hit. My running joke about 01 Ken Dorsey was I think he got sacked 8 times. And
the whole year.
Yeah. And I think 3 of them were against FSU, who was the best team they played in that season. There's 3 of them against FSU, and I'm pretty sure all 3 times he got up in that game and goes, hey, what the hell, man? Is this legal? I've been standing up and not getting hit all this time. Yeah. I thought it was against the rules. I mean, it was just that good.
It was almost like he was wearing a yellow jersey.
Look at now, Tommy Frazier was a superb athlete. I mean, he was an unbelievable athlete. And had he not had the blood clots in his legs, I would like to see what happened to him down the line maybe not in the NFL, but see it somewhere he would have made an impact somewhere because he was an unbelievable athlete. But he also, got to the second level really quick because he had 5 dudes in front of him who were knocking everybody back.
And I had about 12 or 15 of those 5 dudes in front of him. From Hayden Johnson, Oklahoma State also has a chance at the college football playoff, only if both Oklahoma State and TCU need to win out. Whoever wins out would get in. There is that chance. Oklahoma State was in that position last year. Very much would have been a part. It would have been interesting, but they lost in the Big 12 championship game to Baylor, and then of course nuked Notre Dame in the bowl game. A lot of you, appreciate very many of you, all of you, every one of you, to the questions, the opinions, the back and forth. Today has been a very good day in the chat room, and that makes my heart feel so very good. When we come back, we're going to hear from Scott Drew and much more. I want to do Garrett. No, I've already put up that question. There was one other story I thought I had, but I guess I just lost it. I just did not get to it. Let me see if this is it. Nope, that's not it. All right, again, coming up next, Baylor men's basketball coach Scott Drew. Season starts in less than 2 weeks. I see guys like John Rothstein and our good friend Jeff Goodman, among others, closing in on that countdown, the timeline to college basketball. Cannot wait to see that. Let's go to a couple more chat rooms before we take the break because we want to hit Scott Drew, and we got a couple more minutes. On Neil Brown, I don't think this is a must-win for West Virginia on the chat room, but we do think it's a must-win for Neil Brown. We kind of said that before Baylor, and they won that game. And then some said maybe he needs to win 4 of the next 5 to save his job.
I mean, does it even matter? I mean, if he doesn't follow it up, I think disappointing was getting that Baylor win. And, you turn around and get your head kicked in by Texas Tech.
Badly,
I mean, you didn't just get beat. You got walloped by Texas Tech. And I just think that took any remaining steam. Like, I expected obviously not based out there in Morgantown, so I kind of have to rely on our WVU folks to kind of set the scene. And they were talking during, that Baylor game lead in of, there's not sold out, and there's, fans are kind of this and that about Neil Brown and everything. And sure enough, I'm thinking, well, no, it's a weeknight game. It's got I think Baylor was still top 25 at that point, weren't they? I think so. And so I thought, oh, no, of course they'll rally for that. Well, they didn't, and they weren't. And they eventually, the crowd that was there did, because they finally realized, holy cow, Baylor's giving us a chance to win this game. And sure enough, the momentum took off. And I thought, okay, well, they win that game. That wasn't expected. And, maybe this is that launching point for them. And then to turn right around and just get, thrown back to earth. I felt like that was just such a disappointing, result. And that's me feeling that. I can't imagine how Coos or, any of the other WV fans must have felt. So I think the air's out of the sails there. And yeah, he'd have to basically run the table, not just win this weekend, but run the table to really spark something of anything meaneful with that fan base right now.
Behringer, by the way, and it's not our good friend Jason Behringer, but Behringer, a couple of notes, by the way. I appreciate you, and S. Michael DeHart. Now, you know Smokey's a Nebraska fan. Nebraska hasn't been good since they invented the microwave oven or the days of Fred Flintstone. It seems like it's been that long.
Yeah, the 90s didn't exist.
I would say no. Since cell phones got small, they haven't been
since
good.
The iPhone,
yeah. I mean,
what was that, in the 2000s?
Yeah, early 2000s when cell phones got manageable. They haven't been good since then. But
by the way, I need you to help me with something on mine.
Yeah, I'm sure I do.
When we come back, Scott Drew will be inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame, the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. It's an incredible. Michael Strahan's a part of it. Priest Holmes, former great running back at Texas Tech in the NFL with the Chiefs. We'll hear from Scott Drew and what it means. He's been honored many times, and yet another one. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, got a lot of great deals going on right now over at Richard Carr. The wait is over. SUVs, trucks, GMC models have hit the lot. They've got Sierras, Acadias, Terrains, all 2022s have arrived and are waiting for you to test drive today. They've also got the XT4s and the XT5 SUVs out of the Cadillac line as well, also available for test drive, but inventory is going fast over at Richard Carr, so get to the dealership now for their best selection. Maybe the exact truck or SUV is not on the lot, and if you have that to be the case for yourself as you're shopping around for cars, trucks, SUVs, and there's something in mind from Buick, GMC, or Cadillac that you were hoping to see on the lot, but you don't see it. Well, Richard Carr, they are the people you can count on. They're known for their great customer service. And so to help you out, if that is your issue, they want you to get on their inbound vehicle list. And basically what that means is you cut in line for trucks that are cars, SUVs that are in production but not quite in stock at the dealership just yet. Or they can help you design the exact truck or SUV you want and have GMC prioritize it for you. So basically, the point being, whatever you're looking for, whatever you need, whether they have it on the lot or not, they will help you get it one way or the other and help you expedite the process as best they can, just a part of that award-winning customer service. If you're not looking to buy new but instead pre-owned, well, they've got plenty of trucks and cars, dozens of qualities, pre-owned cars and trucks in stock and on the lot. All pre-owned vehicles have gone through a 172-point inspection, and they have multiple lending options, as they love to say yes to loans when others say no. And if you want to drive your current car longer, they have award-winning service and collision repair. You go to richardcar.com to see their service specials or to set up an appointment for quick and reliable service from the dealer you can count on. So whether it's buying a new vehicle, ordering a new vehicle and getting on the wait list for it, getting a pre-owned vehicle, getting your car serviced, getting your car repaired, they are the people you can count on over at Richard Carr. For 23 years in Central Texas, proud Wacoans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
We're fighting hard at Pickup Outfitters in our battle to end truck nudity. But it's not just about putting an outfit on a naked truck, it's about making sure you have the very best customer service. So we offer the Pickup Outfitters Lifetime Installation Guarantee. Over time, sometimes your outfit needs a little tune-up, maybe some tightening, adjusting, whatever. If you outfitted your truck at Pickup Outfitters, that tune-up is absolutely no charge for the remainder of the time you own that truck. We also offer free warranty assistance. If for any reason you need to use your warranty, you just bring it back to us and we take care of it. It just makes sense. I mean, operating without a promise like that would be like offering customer service in the nude. And if you've seen our staff, trust me, you don't want that. So do your part to end truck nudity by outfitting your truck, Jeep, SUV, or van at Pickup Outfitters, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco, where we promise to serve you fully clothed. Check out our website, createacommotion.com.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
College basketball season less than 2 weeks away. That's around the corner. Scott Drew and Baylor, of course, very highly ranked, and expectations and the standard has been set. But also today we talk about Scott Drew because he's among a list that will be inducted into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame next year. And Coach Drew joins us on 365 Sports. What does this mean to you?
Well, it's a great team award. Obviously, you feel very humbled, but at the same time, we tell our guys this all the time. I mean, anytime someone gets honored, it's because of the team. And, I mean, that starts with my family that sacrifices, our players that have sacrificed, our coaching staff, to the fans, the administration. And God has given us a great platform. So really excited about the class, to be a part of such great names and Texas legends. But, again, it's a team award, so it means we're doing something well as a team.
When you were a kid in Indiana, did you ever think that you would be a Texas legend?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had other things I was thinking about. I was thinking I would get out of the cold weather.
Oh, my Lord. You know,
hey, you said so. We only got 2 weeks to season.
Yeah.
Man, it's coming up quick, doesn't it?
Yeah. November 7th, I think it is, right? Mississippi Valley?
The last full season in the Farrell Center. Got to send it out the right way.
Have you gone over and walked around just seeing some of the big things going up in the ground where the pavilion's going to be located?
I'm not one of those guys that's really big into construction. I think my wife will tell you I'm not very handy around the house. So I try to stay away from all that stuff. But it is exciting when you see pictures and videos of what's being done.
So, Coach, being a couple weeks out, as you said, where is your team sort of at this point? Like, what's the kind of the day-to-day, the shift in focus, you know, kind of the ins and outs that we don't see here on the outside of where a program is 2 weeks before they get their ride underway?
Well, I think when you first start your practices in into September and most of all October, it's the meat and potatoes. Like, what are you doing for the 35 minutes of the game? And now, as you get within the last week, 2 weeks before season, you're trying to work on all your game-ending situations, into half, into games, different defenses you might face. So that's really what you put together now. We have one more scrimmage. We're allowed NCAA-wise to have 2 scrimmages, and then after that second scrimmage, all your attention and focus goes to your upcoming game.
How much now, looking back on it, and you've taken these summer trips before, but how much looking back on it with incoming and younger players and transfers, et cetera, was that trip to Canada just to kind of like maybe shake out some cobwebs?
Why the NCAA only lets you go one every 4 years is because it is a big advantage. It's a big advantage with the 10 extra practice days. It's a big advantage for the competition, and it makes you speed up putting in offenses and defenses, allows you to see yourself against other teams. So who plays well together, what rotations, and then the team bonding that goes on. I mean, at the end of the day, the teams that are closer usually are more successful. And so that's why it's a big advantage whenever you have those foreign tour opportunities. And again, that's why it's a 1 out of 4 year deal. And with us, it wasn't a foreign tour because we were going to play in the World University Games and represent the USA team in China. But when the games got canceled, some teams put it together, and we represented the USA in Canada. So it doesn't count as a tour, but you get the same benefits of a tour.
On one way of looking at it, I know you would rather had everybody healthy and not rehabbing all summer like you had guys like Flagler and Cryer and others miss time. But for a coaching staff to see what you have on some of the guys who haven't gotten into the rotations as much, and for incoming freshmen like getting Keontae George more time and everybody else, how beneficial was that not just for those guys, but for you as a coaching staff to know that what you really have in some of these guys who haven't seen those minutes yet?
Well, you make a great point right there because with Adam and LJ and then Langston, at least they were around their team because Langston didn't get a chance. He got injured before season. But those guys could give leadership and advice to the young guys, and it allowed all the first-time players to have a chance to experience what it's like in our system, offense, defense, locker room, just how we do everything during the game. So that experience was really helpful, especially as we began practices because they're further along. Now that can push the guys like Adam and LJ and Langston when they got cleared to play, because they're at a higher level. They know what they're doing. And iron sharpens iron. We practice more in college basketball than we play games. So the more competitive and the better your practice is, the better your team and the better the players get.
Coach, you have a very interesting mix of players on your roster, from, a couple of, babyface freshmen, but talented freshmen, to, a bunch of guys who have had redshirt years, a bunch of juniors, seniors. It's just transfers, obviously. It's a very interesting mix of guys. What have you kind of seen from this team as far as finding its personality?
Well, I can tell you that one thing our staff, our coaches, done a great job of is life is short, and we want to spend time with people every day that we want to be with. And the players that we've been able to bring in and attract, those are guys that energy givers, good teammates. They work hard. They're fun to be around. They're coachable. So it makes going to practice every day enjoyable for us. And because of that, it allows us to accomplish more. And hopefully at the end of the year, that pays dividends. We have enough experience that we have some great leadership at the top of people that have been there, done that. You have some freshmen, which always brings that energy, who left situations. They understand the rigors of Division I, but at the same time, they want to have success and they're anxious to learn, but they have the physical experience and maturity that a freshman might not have. So it's a good blend, and it's been enjoyable so far.
Scott, you mentioned you're not a big, around the house tool man, whatever, but you did rebuild an entire basketball program. Any kind of analogy to what you see going up with the pavilion?
Yeah, I don't really think of Phillips or whatever. What's the other screwdriver? Flathead or something. Yeah. I don't see the similarity, but I can tell you that I am really good at identifying people that are good at what they do, and that's why we've had so many great coaches and players, and I've been blessed to work with great administration. But Kelly, it definitely does all the handiwork. She will occasionally let me screw in a light bulb if I don't mess that up.
Yeah, then there's different wattage and voltage and all that goes with it. Scott Drew will be inducted next April into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame with us on 365 Sports.
Scott, I'm curious how Coach Tweety Carter is adapting to life at home all this time and how he's come along all this time. I'm very excited to see what he's got in store in his coaching career.
Well, Tweety, first Baylor McDonald's All-American, helped lead us to the weekdays, and definitely helped take the program to another level. Played professionally, 14 or 15 different coaches, so he has a lot of different experience. Loves Baylor, loves Waco, believes green and gold, and does a great job in bringing positive energy and relating with the guys. And he's been a joy to have. Another Hall of Famer. He is getting inducted into the Baylor Hall of Fame. Couldn't be more proud of him. And again, anytime you get inducted and get honored like that, it makes you that much more appreciative of everybody that's been on the journey with you. Because again, team awards. If the team doesn't have success, no individual gets praised.
And yesterday was his birthday?
Yesterday was his birthday. He did miss his half-court shot for his birthday. But other than that, the toughest adjustment he's had is the recruiting meals. He said, it's hard to eat this much good food and not work out all the time.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah, I can imagine that. And he looks so happy. The season, as we mentioned, around the corner, and we've mentioned all of leading up to it, but to have Langston Love and LJ, and Adam Flagler back at a part of it, how much when they arrived and they could integrate on the court, did that make you even better?
Oh, well, again, iron sharpens iron every day in practice. And Langston's somebody that has done a great job recovering. But his first couple months back, people will see he's still not back to where he'll be by the end of the season in Big 12 play. So just want to forewarn everyone, don't have that bar so high, because coming back from an ACL injury, it's not like you come back and you haven't missed the last year. I mean, it's a progression and it takes time, but each and every day he gets better. And the guards, I can tell you, guards make coaches look like they know what they're doing. And at times offensively, it's really fun to watch. Defensively, rebounding wise, last year, that was something that our team really did a great job of. as our offense caught up. And this year, with so many good guards, it's going to be important that defensively we can keep that pressure on and do a great job on the glass, because those have been two staples to our success.
You were in New York with Bob Huggins, Huggy Bear, and had a part of that PR marketing tour with the Big 12. I know there's other guys you could have gone on that trip with. And you guys have become really, really close friends. What was that like, and what was the reaction to it, and how the Big 12 also set that up?
Well, first of all, great call by the commissioner. Your Mark is somebody that I love because he's got great energy, great vision. And for those that have ever been to our conference tournaments, they've been outstanding, but they will go to a whole nother level when it comes to entertainment. I mean, with his background, and he understands that sports, it's a great game, but the entertainment around it can make it even that much better. And I think with his background of what he's done with the Nets, what he did with NASCAR, what he's done with all the artists and everybody at Rock Nation, I think he's more interested in making sure everyone across the country from east to west coast knows just how great the Big 12 conference is. And that's part of the reason setting up the New York Media Blitz. Coach Huggins, Hall of Fame coach. Everyone has so much respect for him and what he's done and how he's done it. And obviously done a tremendous job at West Virginia. So I love spending time with them. I always try to learn from them. We had a great time in New York, had some great food. Most of all, we're able to brag about Big 12 and just what great institutions we represent.
I could imagine that Bob Huggins is a pretty cool guy to run around New York City with.
He's fun to run around any city with.
Yeah.
So everybody knows Huggy Bear. So.
Scott, we had a question on the chat room about the conference on the verge less than a year from now with the new incoming schools. Houston, of course, we know where they are, highly ranked, and Kelvin Sampson, UCF, Cincinnati, and Brigham Young. Is it almost like you can't wait for that, although there's just more teams you're going to have butt heads against?
Well, Commissioner Bowlesby did a great job in securing that. And Brett talked about that at the tip-off luncheon yesterday. But their success that they've had in sports and men's basketball, 6 out of the last 9 years analytically, we've had the Big 12's had the best rating in the net or in the RPI. We're the only conference to have 3 different teams in the national championship game 3 straight years. Since 2002, 60% of our league has been in a Final Four, and that's more than any other league. And then now when we add the new teams, you take out Texas and OU when they eventually leave, analytically, Ken Palm-wise will still have the #1 basketball conference. So everyone's done a great job in making sure we continue with the great tradition the Big 12 has.
Thank you, Scott, for jumping on with us. Congratulations on the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. That'll be an incredible event. We appreciate your time and see you on the court soon.
I appreciate you, and thank you for everyone making that possible.
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
You.
Scott Drew, Texas Sports Hall of Fame. The list of others included Robert Brazil. John McClain will be thrilled. We had him on at the Super Bowl in Houston, remember?
Yeah, and I used to do, until I got Wally pipped out of it, which I Wally pipped Steve Fallon out of it, the introductions at the golf tournament. And Robert Brazil came most of the years, and he finally got into it was one of those things like, you got to get this guy in, right? I mean, John McClain would talk about it all the time. A very, very deserving guy.
Absolutely. Finally got into the Hall of Fame. Yeah. Jose Cruz of the Astros back in the day, and the Astros tomorrow start the series with Philadelphia. Carlett Gidry, an incredible track star at Texas. Falkway. Priest Holmes, I've mentioned him a couple of different times. That's a great college football name as well for what he was at Texas and then the NFL. Would it look like he could make a run at being one of the greatest running backs and go after the records? Adrian Peterson, another one. Former Oklahoma and, of course, NFL star out of Palestine. Cynthia Potter and Michael Strahan. Cynthia Potter was a phenomenal athlete as well. And Michael Strahan was in before, but you have some of these schedules and you got to deal with some things.
This is exceptionally busy.
It's on Good Morning America for crying out loud. Yeah.
So that finally got ironed out. It's great to have him as a part of the class too.
I mean, Oklahoma too have great histories of running backs. Priest Holmes was one that I don't know. It kind of escaped me. I always would forget that he went to Texas for some reason. It just didn't pop to mind like Ricky Williams or Cedric Benson or any of the others. Earl Campbell, obviously, and soon Bijan. But he's clearly very deserving. I'm glad to see Adrian Peterson getting some good stuff thrown his way. He was incredible at Palestine, and that was my guy. That was my guy for so many years. He was my favorite player to watch. My second favorite college player behind Tommy Frazier. Because Tommy was first. Tommy got me first. But then there was Adrian, being an East Texas guy, and just loving the Sooners. So, yeah, good for him. Happy that he's going to have that honor.
Yep, Adrian Peterson. He's in among the leading rushers of all time, of course, and then what he did at Palestine and then Oklahoma and much more. So that's that. Thanks to Scott Drew. Appreciate Matt Roberts at Baylor for helping make that happen. We're not done. John Machota at the bottom of the hour. We'll cover the NFL Cowboys as they have this week Chicago.
The Bears, yes.
The Bears. And
they're going to – they get a chance to get a bunch of turnovers. I mean, I know Justin Fields had a good night the other night, but I don't think he solved all the issues. I think that was partially the opponent and all of that. I don't know. This ought to be very interesting with this Cowboys defense.
Oh yeah, and they just got another big defensive tackle, which he hasn't played much for the Raiders. If he's going to play more for the Cowboys, great. They've got a depth piece. I'm curious to see if they kick the tires on. I'm going to ask him about this. So Jerry says they only make big trades, because the trade they made for Jonathan Hankins is not a big trade. It's a conditional 6th-round pick. But if they do kick the tires on a wide receiver, like Odell Beckham's out there, and they don't have a guy, and CeeDee Lamb is good, but he's not like a chain mover automatically.
He's pretty damn good.
Yeah, but
CeeDee Lamb's pretty. But I get what you're saying. One thing that would never fail: Cowboys and wide receivers. Right? Cowboys fans love them some star wide receivers, and it's like they lost one. They need to get one back now. So Amari Cooper's out the door. We need to get somebody to pair with CD. So I could see that.
All right, when we come back, the 5 o'clock hour, we'll get into a couple more thoughts from you on the text line, the chat room, and also look at what the poll says right now on who has the most important must-win this weekend among the 8 teams in the Big 12 who are playing. Texas and Kansas have the weekend off. This is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and perhaps used to be. And in fact, that happens. Father Time, your body changes as you get older. Men, as they get into their 30s or especially into the 40s and 50s, but it can be even earlier, start to lose testosterone. The levels start to change for whatever reason. It just happens. Dr. Kent Petty, if you, in fact, have any kind of these symptoms, you don't sleep as well, you're not as energetic, you've lost you're lethargic, you just don't feel right. And then your sex drive is not the same. ED, whatever it might be. Dr. Kent Petty at pettycliniclowt.com can help you get through that by doing a couple of things. One, you contact them. It's on the line, pettycliniclowt.com, email or phone number, and tell him I sent you. He then will set you up and take care of the original appointment to get your blood work. He will look at your blood work. He will look at your testosterone levels and look at other things as well, because it's not just about that. And if it's too low, if that number is too low, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone levels for you to become the high-performance man you need to be, used to be. pettycliniclowt.com.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Make a winning drive to Genco and refinance your vehicle. Every loan can skip monthly payments for 90 days with rates as low as 3.75% APR for 48 months. Right now is the time to make a play. At Genco, we save you money by helping you pay less for your car. Every loan scores no payments for 90 days. Then have a chance to win 3 more months of no payments. Apply online today for an additional discount of 0.15% off our already low rates. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Standing to the right is Deuce Vaughn. Snap comes back to Howard. Handed off to Deuce. Cuts it back. Got running room. 40. On his feet to the 30. Here goes Deuce Vaughn down the left-hand sideline. 20. 10. And dives for the pylon. Does he get there? He does. That's a 47-yard sprint for Deuce Vaughn.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Dollar in the cookie jar. From Steve, future Big 12 game in Orlando Saturday, Cincinnati and UCF. UCF needs to win out to be the highest-rated G5 team in the polls. Cincinnati's schedule, with all due respect to their opponents, has been rather easy. Don't mistake this year's team for last year's. Very much 2 vastly different teams. And UCF just lost to East Carolina.
Yeah, and that was. I mean, East Carolina's better than probably most people realize. So, I mean, it's not disaster, but man, given the mojo that they had going into that game, that was a bad loss because they really seemed like they were hitting a stride, and then just they got beat. Yeah. I mean, they got beat straight up.
Shouldn't have lost to Louisville, and then that one they got drubbed. But I do, like we on the big one too this week, we picked this game because it is a future matchup, and I'm picking UCF at home. I am. I think Cincinnati's probably the deeper and more experienced team. I just think they've got some mojo there in O-Town when they play there that might come out.
House?
Yeah, in the bounce house. Yeah, so they'll. I mean, Cincinnati by 1. That's the spread right now. Cincinnati by 1 on the road. So,
I think it's flipped to 1 for I think UCF's a 1 point. Depends on where you look, but I think I saw where it flipped to UCF's a 1 point favorite, but it's at the bounce house and they're a 1 point favorite to your point, and they just got drubbed by Holton Ahlers and company, which, ECU's, like I said, probably better than most people realize, and they got a good quarterback. So that's understandable more so than just seeing 34-13 and going, oh, they must suck.
Yeah. Ask NC
East
State
Carolina's about to play Brigham Young.
Yeah.
Brigham Young's probably going to lose that game based on what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ask NC State about going to East Carolina to play a game. It's a hard place to play. And they almost lost there earlier this year. Yeah, they've got a record of knocking off teams, that they maybe weren't favored at, especially when they come to their place.
BYU should win that game. Keyword is should. Based on kind of the direction they're going right now, I don't know that they will. I know they got some more injuries again. I think who was their good young receiver? Is it Chase Roberts? I think he's out. I think they might have another key player that's out. And as we know, like with Puka and Jaron Hall, it's kind of been a week-to-week kind of a thing of how healthy are they or whatever. But, that's definitely a dangerous game for BYU. They're going to have to be careful. And I think we've seen based on, Baylor-BYU game and where we were with that at one point in time to where we are now. That's why college football is a ride and it's a roller coaster, and it's a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. College football, because what teams were we talking up in week 1 and 2? Like, man, it's unbelievable, and that's part of the fun, granted. But that Baylor BYU game felt like a big deal at the time. Felt like a massive loss, and it was a season-changing loss for Baylor in some ways, because I think it kind of showed them some things, but. Yeah, BYU turned right around, got beat by Oregon, and they just kind of stumbled their way along ever since then. Not playing good defense at all. That's been their biggest problem, is just not playing defense, and just been weird to kind of see the height of those two teams that night in Provo to where they've kind of straggled along towards now. But,
that was a slugfest, and it looked like, man, that could launch Brigham Young. And so, having said that, the preseason rankings, A&M probably right now, without a question, is the most disappointing based on, of course, again, the fraud of what are preseason polls. Baylor's at least in the discussion, and with a way to either turn the table or not, Brigham Young's in the discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been given I don't know what was their preseason ranking. I don't think that they were exceptionally they weren't exceptionally high. I think that was just us having more familiarity with them and knowing that Jaron Hall is a pretty good player and all that. But nobody, at least I'll say not nobody, because I'm sure there's some BYU analysts out there that predicted the defense wouldn't be very good, but this is pretty surprising as far as I'm concerned. I think that Baylor's pretty high to start off with. They'd have to be in that conversation if things keep going the direction they're going. Like if, they don't make a bowl game, then they need to be on that list. But A&M is far and away, I would have to think, the biggest disappointment.
Their secretariat at the Belmont.
Far and away.
Brigham Young was ranked 21st in the country.
So,
Baylor was at number 9 in the country.
So, top 10 start and then end up perhaps not making a bowl game. That's a pretty big whiff, but A&M still easily the number 1
Some of you don't know his name is Butch Henry. Butch passed away during the summer of 2020 when we had taken on this show in the spring. Butch was an icon in Waco, baseball coach, a Little League baseball coach, and he was a hell of a friend of ours. But on the chat room, Glenn, Smokey, do you think Butch is smiling about his Astros? Yeah, absolutely. He loved him some Astros. He loved them back in the days of Jimmy Wynn and Larry Durker and names like that. But, he's smiling down on the Astros, who I think I know Philadelphia's hot, and I'm not good about predictions, but I got a feeling that the Astros are going to just kind of run right through that series. They're just really that good.
What do you think Butch would have thought of YouTube chat rooms and all the other stuff that goes on with this show?
I think he would have been upset about wearing socks every day. I don't think. I remember one time when we launched our own Twitter for the radio station, and I went to Twitter and I saw the Cliff Lee story, and we got done, and Butch was like, "How'd you find that out so damn quick?" I was like, "Well, it's just on Twitter." And he was like, "What's Twitter?" Oh, we had a meeting before that before you came on. I remember this is very funny because Butch was an old dude and didn't have a computer, didn't have a cell phone, all that, and they sent this email out afterwards that we had to print out and give to Butch. And it said, Paul Catalina is the only personality on the air that has a Facebook page. Now, I was by far the youngest guy there because everybody else that was working there was 45 or older. And so Facebook was kind of new. And Butch is like, well, I ain't going to have no damn Facebook page. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah,
and so,
he's smart.
Yeah,
Smart.
he was ahead of the time, even though he was behind the time.
Absolutely, very, very smart. Incredibly smart man. Cousin, by the way, I did ask you a question about Huggins and Scott Drew and the trip and all that, plus about the expansion, the new teams coming in. So thanks to you for the comment about S. Michael DeHart.
I believe, if I've seen correctly, he's pretty high on the Hugh Freeze to West Virginia train. I think so. If I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but I believe I've seen some tweets of that nature when I've been looking around at West Virginia stuff, and obviously that would be I'm sure you've had some debates online about that, but Liberty circling all the way back to BYU. I mean, they smacked BYU around, man. I mean, that was a bad loss for Kalani Sitake and company. It's one thing losing to Oregon and Eugene. It's another thing to lose this game or that game. But, I mean, to lose like they did to Liberty, that's another one that Liberty now puts up in their hall of wins of like Baylor game, years back. And I'm sure there's some others that are of that caliber. But, that was pretty shocking, especially because Liberty wasn't even fully healthy. Like, they're not even rolling out like their A's all across the board at the most important position, especially at quarterback. So, yeah, very interesting to see where the Cougars kind of go from here. But Hugh Freeze is going to be a guy, inevitably, that we're going to hear his name, and it's going to be a thing. There's no doubt.
Wake Forest is their only loss.
Yeah,
Liberty lost by 1.
Yeah.
They smacked Old Dominion, who's been okay, and they beat Brigham Young badly, 41-14. I mean, and you don't hear, and they're kind of under the radar.
Well, it's because it's Liberty, and people don't want to talk about them.
I was
That's
say
why.
that. Yeah.
And it's also Hugh Freeze. They don't want to talk about him. It's like kind of a double whammy, and somebody inevitably is going to overlook, and like it's like, you can't just say like, well, he did this and that was it. Like there's some complicated like nuance that you need, especially as far as like the text message thing a few months. Like there's just some nuance that's needed with the Hugh Freeze story. But he's a good coach. I mean, there's no denying that. And yeah, they're a good team that, I think a lot of people are probably fingers crossed hoping loses another game along the way because you're going to have to talk about them inevitably. But yeah, they smacked BYU around and they're good. And they're not dealing, like I said, with the full deck either, especially at quarterback. So, before he got hurt, Caden Salter, the old Cedar Hill quarterback, he had a couple of good performances for them, and he's probably going to be their guy, in the future. But they're right there in the mix, and he's going to be in some carousel talk.
Yeah, and look, he's a fantastic football coach. There's no doubt about that. I think that if you wanted Hugh Freeze for your team, you're going to have to deal with a lot of because he is dichotomous, to put it mildly, when it comes to kind of how he presents himself to how we know he kind of really is when it comes to those things off the field.
He has like the fake preacher vibes.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I mean, let's just say it. Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he's got that's exactly what it is. And I know I have a really close friend of the business who covered him in Ole Miss, and that was kind of the way they felt about him. Was like, Coach, can we just focus on
less shtick, please?
Like just do this. He interviewed him every week, and it was like, Coach, just I don't need all this other stuff. Like, our listeners want to know this. And it just got to the point, especially when Hugh Freeze, the scandal hit and he got fired, it was kind of like, well, at least I don't have to deal with that anymore. Even going into the fact that Ole Miss had a lot of unknowns going forward because of when that all happened. And okay, let's make Matt Luke, who's an alum, the coach and go forward there. But that wasn't really what they were. That's a step down from a guy like Hugh Freeze, who was a mover and a shaker. Matt Luke wasn't that guy, but Hugh Freeze was moving and shaking in some circles you don't want, and that's why he's at Liberty now.
And they play Arkansas in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
so they could go
Liberty.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They could go potentially. I mean, they'd have to win on the road at Arkansas, so being on the road gives me less hope. But I mean, that's a winnable game. Like I said, they can't win that game, but yeah, I mean, if they were to win that one, I don't think you'd have any choice but to pay. Everybody across the country who hadn't been would have to pay some attention there.
We have not. We've discussed a lot, and there's a couple of games nationally that we have probably not spoken too much about, and we will get and chew on that the next couple of days. One quick note about a book that tomorrow, Jeff Pearlman, Paul set this up, New York Times bestselling author, has written like 10 books. He wrote a book, The Last Folk in the Road, The Life and the Myth of Bo Jackson. He's going to join us tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I got my copy. I'll bring it tomorrow.
Oh, good. Yeah, because God,
I've not read it yet, but yeah.
As powerful, dynamic, a career cut short, an amazing player, an incredible type, just about him, not just because he ran over Brian Bosworth. He was just incredible. And so we'll have Jeff Pearlman on. If you're a Bo Jackson fan or not, Auburn fan, he'll be on with us tomorrow at 4.
Yeah, I've seen he's written a lot of books.
Winning Time.
Yeah, they've turned into TV shows and all sorts of other things. So yeah, I mean he's been long in the game, in the sports book writing game, and didn't he have a book on Favre at one point?
Favre.
Yeah, and tons of others. So yeah, he's well known and well respected, and it'd be interesting to talk to him.
Walter Payton, Showtime, I guess the Lakers, Bonds. So he's not afraid to dive into it. But Bo Jackson, that book, we'll have him on tomorrow at 4.
By the way, can I add something here on the coaching carousel? I just went to Coach's Hot Seat, like everybody's website that you just go to kind of see. And it's not always like I guess what you would call like how everybody else would have their list or whatever. But it's just it's a well enough guide to kind of see where like there's some some scuttlebutt, I suppose. You can argue the rankings of the realism, because Jimbo Fisher's number 3. He's not getting fired by A&M. Like, they're just not going to pay that tab. Mario Cristobal's not going anywhere, but he's number 7. Like, but he's not getting fired after this year. So, they're like again, you kind of take it how you take it. But outside of, like, obvious big names that aren't going to be fired because of their contracts, there hadn't really been a ton of change since, like, week 2 of the season, really, or even the first month of the season. We're still looking at Jeff Scott. We're still looking at, maybe Brian Harsin, if that finally, decides to go its separate ways there.
I don't know if it was Chris Vanini or Andy Staples. One of the guys, Matt Fortuna maybe, on The Athletic wrote a column about it, and they said Harsin kind of surprises everybody because they thought that would have been done already.
Yeah.
But Auburn also doesn't have an AD yet. So that's part of the reason they haven't pulled the trigger. Plus, I think they are starting to get at least a little bit aware of what everybody else in the world sees from the outside as a circus in the alumni, and they're trying to be like, that's just a myth. That's how it looks. That's not how it is. But when you fire a guy that quickly.
Here's some feedback, by the way, on a couple of things. And from Steve Snook, Harsin to West Virginia, get him out of Auburn. Tough to coach looking over your shoulder at boosters and alumni who wield their power far too heavily. There's maybe a handful of those schools out there that happens. John Hammond, can Auburn afford to pay off yet another coach?
Apparently so, because they're going to do it.
I think Auburn has those that kind of the boosters that can write a check, $23 million, $16 million, $12 million, or at least a couple of them that can do that.
Yeah, there's just a common theme, though, like Jimbo, Marcus Freeman's on the list. Those aren't happening. So as far as, like, we had a couple big jobs open up early, and it's really kind of settled down, and I don't foresee, at least, like, Brent Venables isn't getting fired. Steve Sarkisian's not getting fired. Like, there's a bunch of guys who we can talk about, like, not having good years, but Freeman, Sarkisian, Venables, they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. It's year one. So that leaves, like, kind of some middle of the, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but some less, top 25 all-time type of jobs. But, good news for Nebraska. Good news for Wisconsin, even though they're kind of in-house.
Colorado, maybe, Arizona State.
Colorado, sure. Arizona State,
By the way, Kirk Ferentz is on that list, and I don't think he's getting fired now, but I do think that there might be hey, coach, you ever think about fishing a lot?
I think
there's talks maybe going on.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I think there's like a 0% chance he ever gets fired there, unless like scandal hit massively or something, because I think they've been through it over the years. I mean, at this point, there's too much of investment there. But saying all that, I do think that he at least has like cracked the door open on himself.
He stepped in a big old pile of it.
I think there was a concrete vault and 10-foot doors that he could never be, penetrated. And I think that this year he's kind of allowed there to be some cracks in the armor for the first time. Maybe not for the first time. Historically, maybe I'm incorrect on that. But as far as present day, the unthinkable is now like, well, if he doesn't fire,
there's nothing unthinkable anymore.
Well, that's true.
In life,
but that's pretty close to it. But he's at least let the armor weaken a little bit, which you got to be careful with that.
I reached out to the reporter that asked him the question, and Ferentz then, of course, alluded to it and talked about, well, at least I don't have to go home and be you or whatever it was.
And that was part of it.
I never heard back from him. Alan Carter, Neil Brown would have been fired if Baylor hadn't laid an egg in Morgantown, would have blown out West Virginia like they should have. From S. Michael DeHart on Hugh Freeze.
Probably
I think
on that.
There are a lot of West Virginia fans that are quickly warming up to HF. In a wet blanket, I love Bo War, number 16, because of him in baseball. John Hammond about the affordability. Someone said, why in the world would you want West Virginia to jump into the frying pan? That's Michael, and suggest that about Harsin to I think that was to West Virginia. Yeah.
Why in the world? I think you're just throwing that out there as a possibility.
Yeah,
right?
But Harsin also, like, I'll tell you this, and somebody put that out there. Harsin, I mean, we've seen him coach well at Boise State. Now, his personality in Auburn clearly did not mesh. I don't think it has anything to do with the product on the field overall, which has not been great. But I don't know if they're going to get the best version of Brian Harsin if every day he goes home and he's like, ugh.
I think the product on the field is just average enough to where it allows them to really have some momentum behind it. I think, obviously, if they were really good, then you'd be hearing a lot less of that. So it kind of contributes to that.
Stephen Snook, just for what both of you were talking about, did Harsin go to Auburn and just forget how to coach and recruit? I don't think so. Malzahn is a totally different man after getting out of Auburn. It's a circus there year in and year out.
And absolutely right on that. Gus Malzahn does seem like he's having basically retirement, but not, still doing all the favorite parts that you love about being a football coach, but all the other stuff that you didn't enjoy is kind of out the window for the most part. And so, I do think that maybe more guys, especially as they get older in coaching, see, kind of that route and realize, especially if you've already had some pretty good previous success, that, the grass isn't always greener at the very top or what have you. The Bo Jackson comment, I just realized I grew up in an era with Bo and Dion.
Yeah.
And that's Ohtani these days, huh?
Yeah.
He'd be their version of it.
All right, so one more thing, and then we get to John Machota, the Athletic, covers the Cowboys in the NFL. This weekend, outside of the Big 12, there's not really I guess Oklahoma State, Kansas State's intriguing. All of them are. But as far as bangers, the banger rivalry that's been talked about eventually moving it or not, Georgia, Florida, Georgia, a huge favorite in that game. Ohio State at Penn State, James Franklin, I thought somebody told me he's like 1-7.
I did.
Against Ohio State.
1-7.
Well, you're somebody.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. Kentucky at Tennessee. Michigan State at Michigan. We know that Michigan State's been a mess. I've seen that block fumbled punt over and over again about how that dramatic ending of 2 or 3 years ago or 5 years ago.
This is not the Tennessee team saying this or Josh Heupel, because they never would, because they're not dumb enough to be like, oh, well, all we have to do is just lose one to Georgia. I do think that Kentucky and Mark Such will use the fact that Tennessee's fans have kind of overlooked this game a little bit, in that they're like, oh, we beat Alabama, now we just got to beat Georgia. Like, no. You got Kentucky still.
Well, if they can turn this into kind of a game that's not played in the mud, because it's not, but you kind of slow it down in certain ways with their defense and running game.
Yeah, it is at Rocky Top, so it's going to be really hard. But
they just got to keep doing what they've been doing. Man. This ain't about Kentucky. This ain't about anything that they're going to do. I mean, Kentucky's going to come with the kitchen sink and the frying pan and all that jazz. But this is about Tennessee just handling their business. And if they just handle their business, then we can
just keep going.
Exactly. Yeah. And the Ohtani thing, that was a very random. But he's the closest I can think of he's not a dual sports star, but he's a dual baseball star. And just as far as the uniqueness, that's what I was getting at with that comparison.
Michigan State at Michigan. Oh, Utah, Washington State, just kind of that, but not a banger. Ole Miss at A&M. Okay.
I mean,
Ole Miss has to bounce back because of the disappointing loss to
LSU.
has
to bounce forward.
Yeah.
They got to bounce somewhere.
Clemson, Alabama, and LSU are off this week.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just Ole Miss, A&M for just bragging rights. Obviously, Jimbo versus Lane, and who can rebound better. Basically, Ole Miss doesn't want to drop 2 and all of a sudden start skidding down the top 25. But for A&M, they. Like, how bad can it get for them? So every win is important for Jimbo, just to have a good week, just to not have the same after a loss kind of talk that continues on. But, the schedule's got some good games. Not the biggest banger-filled weekend, as you would say, in terms of the slate, though.
Next week, though, Tennessee at Georgia, Bama at LSU. Wake Forest at NC State.
NC State's starting to lose a little bit of their luster at this point, but yeah.
Yeah. All right, one note, we've mentioned Adrian Peterson, not sure about, well, he's not practicing and whether he'll play in the game Saturday against Oklahoma State. He was put in as among the finalists for the William V. Campbell Trophy given to college football's top scholar athlete. He is a part of a list with other guys from schools like Auburn, Dayton, Chicago, Fordham, Yale, UTSA, Holy Cross, Stanford, Troy, Wayne State, Mississippi State, Johns Hopkins, and also Minnesota, St. John's, Minnesota. He's in that list. How about that for Adrian Martinez? Says a lot about what he does academically as a scholar athlete. This is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco. The best place in Central Texas for Texas craft whiskeys. If it's made in Texas, they've got it there. TX, Devil's River, Garrison Brothers, Balcones, and not only just like one variety of it, whatever varieties they have within those brands, they've got those too. So the selection is just better and better. Great selection of craft beers, also the best in Central Texas, always churning that roster of new craft beers. Great selection of everything that they have at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Customer service is second to none, and they're available on DoorDash. So there's really no reason you can't get to them, or you just go in to the store or to the drive-thru window at Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank. They also do some fun stuff. You can check that out on Instagram. Whenever they have a cool new promotion, a new product, a new brand in there, they will always do something cool with those brands and have some fun with it. They are great at Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank. Check them out on DoorDash as well.
During Jeep Adventure Days, Allen Samuels in Waco is celebrating with an incredible lineup of 2022 models like the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. These vehicles bring power to plow through any obstacles or the smooth, peaceful ride you'd expect from a Jeep. Jeep SUVs are also known for their design and technology. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a third row. Come see what Allen Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance, and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with John Machota of The Athletic, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
John Machota, TheAthletic.com. Cowboys, with that win, they found a way to slug through Detroit. And now coming up with Chicago, a team that you would look at on paper and say, okay, yeah, they won Monday night against what is a very bad Patriots team. John Machota here. Before we get into the specifics of the game, Zeke Elliott has always been incredibly durable. I could be wrong, but one of the few times he's missed games was because he was suspended by Commissioner Roger Goodell. What are the chances? I don't see him missing a game because of the kind of the way he plays the game, but is there a chance he doesn't play this weekend?
Yeah, there's definitely a chance. I mean, and being around him today, he was in good spirits, and I didn't really notice him limping or anything like that. But he said he was dealing with some stiffness. It's basically a sprained right knee, and he hyperextended it on that hit. Obviously, he was able to play after that, score a couple touchdowns, leap over a guy. But next day, Monday, he said he was feeling really, really sore and a lot of stiffness in the leg, and then. Now, in the last couple of days, he says it's not quite as bad, but they're certainly balancing the possibility of, you have the bye week the following week, and it is the Bears who, one, they're not that great of a team, and then two, it's the fact of they're not a division game. This isn't like they're playing the Giants or Eagles. I think that would change things dramatically. Zeke certainly wants to play, but I think that there'll be some, between the medical staff and the coaching staff, weighing of how much is this worth it, and then how much better can he be if we give him basically 2 weeks off with the bye week next week. And so I would not be surprised if he did not play in this game.
John, you can make the argument that last year they'd have been served to maybe let him miss a couple games because he fought through a leg injury last year and they didn't. And by the end of the year, he was just a shell of himself. And he's been so efficient this year. I wouldn't want to see them ruin that down the stretch.
Yeah, and I think that they're factoring that in too. Now, this isn't as anywhere near as significant as that one was last year that he played through, but how much they are leaning on the run, how much they're going to need the run, how much they need him in the running game, particularly in short yardage situations. This just seems like one of those games where if it's even close, err on the side of caution. Let Tony Pollard get 20 carries, bring up a Malik Davis or somebody from the practice squad and work one of those guys in and give Zeke, which would almost be 3 weeks of time off, because this is the thing with Zeke. Like, this isn't a timing thing with Dak where he needs to be on the same page with receivers and stuff like that. Zeke doesn't need to practice during the week to play on Sunday. He said as much today when we talked to him.
I think if, in fact, the last time he missed a game or two, was that when he had some of the fumble problems, or was that just contagious throughout that year? Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think that was just, I don't know if that had really anything to do with it. I want to say they sat him down one game last year. Maybe it was, I can't remember which game it was exactly, but it was to try and get him some rest on that knee. And actually the following week he played pretty well. So I think it's a good possibility that they end up sitting him unless, we get to Friday and he's feeling great and there's, no swelling and all of a sudden he's just like, man, they're almost surprised with how good he feels. But where they're at right now, I'd put it at 50-50 at best that he plays Sunday.
John, I know this being a Wednesday, it's all look ahead at this point, but just looking back briefly on that Detroit game, I mean, I'd imagine your thoughts at the end of it were much different than your thoughts at halftime when it was 6-3 Lions. But what were kind of your sentiments leaving that game in terms of the Cowboys?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It was a tough game story for me to write because being somebody that's from Detroit and knowing the Lions as well as I do.
That's right. Yeah.
It was just difficult for me to sit there and talk about the defense and how great they played and trying to kind of push out of my mind that you guys do know that this is because you played the Lions. Like, this is what they do. And part of me, and I wrote it and then I deleted it, but my lead was going to be something along the lines of like, sometimes it's just, you find the perfect time to play the Lions. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say there weren't great hustle plays by the defense in the second half. There obviously were. They kept them in the game. But, I mean, 5 takeaways in the second half. I mean, as much as you want to pat yourself on the back, you also got to sometimes look at the guy on the other side of the field and go, oh, yeah, this is what this organization does. So, I focused a little on the defense and on Dak and things like that because, hey, for Dak's first game back, the defense came away with the takeaways and whatever. But if you've watched the Lions as long as I have, there's nothing that happened in that game that made you think like, man, I don't know how they blew this. They never do things like this. I mean, it was just a signature Lions game.
Yeah, that's a team that
the
you
fumble
can
at the goal line.
You can score 6 points through almost 3 quarters against, and you're like, I mean, it's going to work out eventually.
No, there's no question. The fumble at the goal line is the perfect one because it's like it's Jamal Williams, the guy that never fumbles. It's on a play that it's not that common that you're going to fumble on the 1 yard line, Paul, unless it's LSU, Florida State, and they're trying to steal the game in the Superdome. But generally, you don't fumble on the goal line like that. And then even to be caught behind the way Micah caught the tight end from behind, I mean, just such a rare play, and he deserves plenty of credit for that. But there's just some things with the Lions where you just kind of feel like, well, you just keep playing long enough, they'll do something to give you the game. And it was hard to watch that game on Sunday and not think, yeah, well, as they always say, in Detroit, they always say SOL, same old Lions, and that's exactly what that game was.
Isn't it interesting that the division that for the last several years, yes, 1 year both Dallas and Philly made a run, but you have Philadelphia unbeaten. Giants are having a great run. They're winning close games, and they're kind of a fun story with Brian Daboll. Saquon starting to run better. Jones is not turning it over as much, but the Cowboys hammered them. And then Dallas. This is fun. I think a great run towards the midsection of this season to see what happens over the next maybe a couple of months.
Yeah, no question. My biggest takeaway from it right now is just we're just so used to seeing NFC playoffs. If you want to get to the Super Bowl, you're going to have to go through Breeze or Rodgers or Brady or whatever. And you just look at these teams right now and you're just like, I mean, it's not like Dak's playing great. He's coming back from the injury. You got Jalen Hurts, who's still unproven. Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones. I mean, it's just not exactly. It's not the quarterback they were used to. And really, to that point, that's why I completely understand when you see a trade today like the Eagles made. The NFC is wide open. Go and grab it. I mean, yeah, I clearly think the Chiefs and the Bills are going to be a handful for whoever plays them because I think one of those two will be in the Super Bowl. But someone has to get there from the NFC, and there just isn't that juggernaut type. Man, I don't know how you're going to get through this team. Oh, and Jimmy Garoppolo is the other quarterback. So I don't know. Like, I just think it's as wide open as I've seen it, and since I've covered sports, that's for sure. And so if you're the Cowboys, you got to think that, man, we got as good a chance as anybody.
What do you think? You just mentioned it there. What do you think about Robert Quinn to the Eagles?
I think it's a great move. I think that over the last year and a half, Howie Roseman has just done a great job with the trades he's made, draft picks, signings. It's one of those things where you cover the Cowboys and you kind of feel like, where has the Cowboys offseason ever been like this? Not, at least recently, where they just really go. Now, obviously, they had the trade in the middle of the season in 2018 for Amari Cooper, but there's just Philadelphia is leaving no doubt that they're all in. Mm-hmm. And I certainly believe the Cowboys are all in, but not to the level of what the Eagles are showing you. Now, with that being said, the Eagles, the way they're doing this, I don't know how well that sets you up for another year or two. There'll still be some moves that they have to make going forward where I think the Cowboys are set up really well for the next year or two. But if you're just looking at this season, I certainly think the Eagles are better set up to make that run and potentially get to Arizona for the Super Bowl than the Cowboys are as of right now.
Do you think the Cowboys, I know Jerry said the other day, it's got to be a Deion Sanders-like move, and I wouldn't say to make a trade, but do you think one of those is out there for them to make?
No, because actually, it's funny you say it, because when I walked away from, it was one of those typical, right after the game, Jerry talks for a couple of minutes, a bunch of reporters break off and go in the locker room, but Jerry keeps talking for another 10 or 15, and so I stayed there for all of it. And when Jerry said that, and I asked him a follow-up about the trade deadline and things like that and the Deion stuff. And when I walked away from that, one of the biggest things that stood out to me, and I was talking about with some other reporters, I was like, I don't know if you even would do it for a Deion Sanders type player. And the reason why I say that is because if you're talking about getting a Deion Sanders type player like they did in '95, which they signed him, they didn't trade for, but still of that magnitude, what you'd have to give up to get that player, I don't think the Cowboys would do it. They've shown us nothing to make us think that they would do that over the last 10 plus years. Have shown you nothing to make you think that they would really, even if there was that player. I don't know who that would be right now. I mean, I guess you could say like a Jalen Ramsey or an Aaron Donald or something like that. But like, we're talking 1995 Deion, you'd have to give up like 3 or 4 first-round picks. I don't think the Cowboys would do that. I think the Amari Cooper trade is probably the limit on what they would do. They would give up a first-round pick for a player. And Amari Cooper is great, and I thought he was the perfect addition for what that team needed, but that ain't no Deion Sanders deal.
No, and didn't Carolina just reportedly turn down 2 first-round picks for Burns? Is that right?
Yeah, for Brian Burns.
So if they got 2 first-round picks offered for him and he's an edge outside, pressure, what would they get for Deion? I mean, you can't – part of the franchise, I mean, that's what they get now. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has that with that too. Hey, John, appreciate your time, as always. Anyone else have anything? John Machota, the athletic.com and the Cowboys, and also the NFL as we head to another weekend. The Bears beat the Patriots, and that doesn't mean much. And then also, remember, they're also the same team that lost like 12-7 to the Commanders, like the 2 weeks, or a week or two before that. So it's a bunch of that ugly out there. Now, we had a question on a comment on the chat room. I thought I highlighted it. This is an interesting stat than a break in the top 5. From Wet Blanket, missed tackles forced per carry in FBS football. Number 1, Paul Catalina, Trey Benson, Florida State.
Love that guy.
Number 2, Roshan Johnson, Texas. Number 3, Spencer Sanders at Oklahoma State. Those are the top 3 who carry the football, or enough. I'm sure there's a minimum amount of carries. Forced per carry, missed tackles. Sanders, you need to, because he's a quarterback. He needs to stay healthy. Roshan sometimes just runs over people. But Trey Benson, Florida State, Roshan Johnson, who I am really impressed with, and Spencer Sanders. Paul Catalina's top 5 is next.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness this morning. I went and had my my tennis lesson with Joe Rosa. It was great. We had a great time. He's making me deadly accurate. I'm surgical out there on the court right now. Surgical. I feel really good about where my game is if I was playing somebody at my own skill level. But I really, really feel good about where it is. I have a great time with Joe, and the lesson's great. They have a lot of great things that go on around tennis there. So it's not just the lessons that you get with Joe. You can do the play with a pro where you bring out 3 people, and Joe is your 4th for a doubles match, and he teaches you strategy. Winds up out to about $33 a person. So not a bad deal to do that, to prepare you for some doubles strategy, because that's what you're going to play most of the time when you're playing, in tournaments in tennis or just on the weekends. You're mostly going to play doubles. They also have events. Like tonight, they're having their big Halloween event. It's $20 a person for members or $30 for non-members. Now, it might be a little late to get over to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, but just an idea of the cool stuff that goes around the community around the tennis that they have there. They put on great tournaments. If you're from the outside looking in, trying to get a place to put a tournament on, Waco's a great place to play tennis. There's a lot of great tennis players here, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is the place to do that, and Joe can set that up for you. So just go through them on the website at wacotennis.org. And do that. They're fantastic. They're absolutely fantastic. The facilities are second to none. You cannot beat it. And Joe's a great teacher for the adults. I've had a fantastic...
It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Top 5 out of nowhere Heisman candidates. If you had told me that any of these 5 people had been Heisman candidates at the beginning of the year, I would have told you, well, it's going to take a lot.
Doesn't that happen now more often than not?
Yeah, I'm glad it does. It's good that we're not, like
a preseason college football.
Yeah, we're not
top 25
pre-nominating, ordaining the Heisman Trophy winner. Well, especially look now, and sometimes maybe it's harder, especially when the Heisman Trophy winner from last year is back. Most of the time throughout history in college football, the guy wins the Heisman Trophy and you never see him again in college football. He's on to the next event. But that's not necessarily the case when you've got a guy like Bryce Young who wins it before he's draft eligible, or so many other guys that have recently. Number 5, North Carolina quarterback Drake May. This dude can sling it. Now, he's a dark horse. All these guys are some level of dark horse, except for maybe the next one. But even still, they're all a little bit dark horse candidates. But Drake May can sling it around. If you've not watched North Carolina play, don't get hung up on the fact that they cannot stop anybody or tackle all that well, but they can score, and it's because of this dude right here. He is unreal good.
And that's after Howell was supposed to be like their savior, and it didn't. He was okay, and now Drake May.
Yeah, he's special. I mean, he is. Max got a good one, and he'll be all in the NFL discussions and all that kind of stuff moving forward. He's a good one. He's a very good player. And I think if you followed recruiting, you talked about Drake May. So there is a difference because not everybody in college, it's like I was talking about the graphs and stuff earlier. There's a whole market for numbers games, right? And there's a whole market for recruiting, and there's a whole market for NIL. There's all these things that some of us, touch on all of them. But yeah, I mean, if you followed recruiting, you probably knew about Drake May, and he's a good one. For sure.
Still got him there for a couple of years, too. So you're going to see a lot of...
Was he... what's his class?
He's a freshman.
Freshman. Okay, so that's a Mac Brown gem. Okay.
Yeah. Number 4, right out of the transfer portal from Virginia Tech to Tennessee, Hendon Hooker, who is up towards the top right now. But if you told me at the beginning of the year that a guy who's, I thought their ceiling was probably 9-3, Tennessee, I thought that's what they were going to be. Hendon Hooker was a fine player and looked like he was on the rise. But what he's done so far this year is nothing short of amazing. And, if they continue to win, he's probably going to be sitting in one of those chairs on Heisman night. He's been fantastic. And Virginia Tech's going to be kind of kicking themselves for how they didn't work it out and make it amenable for him to stay there. But this has worked out for him, for Tennessee, and for everybody. But Virginia Tech, the place he transferred from.
They kicked the field goal to win the game, and they were dynamic with the long throws. But the thing that was impressive is it gets overlooked, and Saban mentioned that Alabama played too soft. He threw a couple of ropes.
Yeah.
A couple of, long enough to be giving them a chance. Ropes on the nose, perfectly thrown in that last drive to set up the game-winning field goal.
Not to be left out with him either. He's doing this all without the guy they thought was going to be the number 1 wide receiver. Now, Jalen Hyatt has stepped up huge.
He's been
incredible the last few weeks.
Man, he's having the type of year, Corey Coleman had a monster year for the Blitnikoff a few years back, and I remember that one because it was right, here. But he's going to just shatter all the numbers.
But they're going to get that the number 1 guy back too eventually, and that's going to make them even more lethal going forward. Now that they have guys and not to mention a guy like Brew McCoy, who's their 3rd or 4th wide receiver, but still they've got talent there.
Yeah, to your point, I think most Virginia Tech fans feel the same way. I think the good thing is that. It's not like a screw that guy. It's just kind of we screwed that one up more so. And he's having an incredible year. I definitely wouldn't have pegged him. I mean, you might have thought, okay, Tennessee, their investments and Josh Heupel on that offense and some fun weapons. You might have thought he's having a good year, but Heisman run, unbeaten at this stage, all that. No, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. Number 3, Chase Brown, Illinois. If you had said anybody, Illinois, not just Chase Brown, even though you may have known he was talented, but if you had said anybody Illinois and Heisman hype before the season started, are you okay? Are you need to go to rehab or something? You're out of your mind. But Chase Brown's dominant, maybe there's so many good running backs this year, but one of the best backs in the country, and a dude nobody was talking about, and really fun to watch, a playmaker. That team is built defense first, and they're built to the running game, so they have to make plays in the running game.
Yeah.
But when called upon, Chase Brown seems to hey, you need a big play in this spot, you need 17 yards. Chase Brown gets all 17 of them.
Yeah, very good player. Illinois with Bielema. I paid a little attention to them because of Lovie Smith and whatnot years back, but he was able to recruit relatively well and not get it done on the field. But yeah, Chase Brown's been fantastic. I mean, I don't know how big the college fantasy football market is. I feel like there's probably a pretty good market for it, but it could probably be way, way bigger. He would be a dude that you'd be hearing all the rage about.
The NCAA needs to embrace it like the NFL has.
Yeah, I don't know what the kind of parameters are and how all that works, but I'd imagine we're going to have full blown that too, in the very near future if we don't already. But he's every game this year had 100 yards, dating back for a while now. So very impressive.
Number 2. This one I would not have believed. Bo Nix, because he was such a roller coaster. And not even a good one at times. It was just, he could have.
Are there any good roller coasters?
Yeah, I love roller coasters. But if there's a dude, his one skill at Auburn seemed to be he can have 57 really bad minutes of football. And if they were within a score in the last 3 minutes, he could make crazy stuff happen. Yep. Now, the ratio is flipped. He might have 3 bad minutes a game. He is playing out of his mind. Kenny Dillingham has put him in a system that works for him. He is ripping it up there in Oregon. And take out the one game he still had to play in the SEC this year, and he's one of the best players in the country by far.
Yeah, he's been fun to watch. That's a great story right there.
Yeah, and Zach Calzada was going to be better, or anybody else they want. JT Finley is going to be better, and I mean, I know that's not the.
But Auburn is on a run of bad things happening.
Yeah, it's just to see him doing his thing after the run there, and then we got Calzada or we got JT Finley or whatever, or TJ Finley, excuse me. Yeah, to see him doing that, I can't imagine how Auburn fans must feel to see that. But I'm glad for Bo Nix, man. Good for him. He took a lot of S over the years, and to go up there and thrive in Oregon, I'm not shocked because that just seems like a more fun place to play at the moment and more open place to play. But yeah, to have limited the mistakes, which he kind of became known for, has been, the biggest part of him, being in this discussion. And I think it's awesome for him.
Yeah, if you had told me he was going to be better at Oregon, I'd been okay. But this much better, holy cow. It has really worked out. And number one, a guy who did not win the starting quarterback job out of camp, Max Duggan. And he was a guy who was an emotional roller coaster. I've used that again, but that was his problem, was the moment would overwhelm him sometimes, and he would get too fired up. Well, now Sonny Dykes and Garrett Riley have him cool as a cucumber for the most part and channeling that intensity in the right ways. Now, we saw him against Baylor in a game where he was a hair's breadth away from winning that game in a video review call of that.
Oh, my Lord.
But that was kind of the lesser. It's kind of almost like Bo Nix. You got to see those moments from Max Duggan, but then there were games where, especially ones that TCU shouldn't have been losing, that he would just, you would look onto the sideline and, you got to calm down, brother.
Yeah.
It's okay. Go out there and be Max Duggan. Now he's going out there and being Max, and it is fun to watch that
He
kid.
runs that way, too. I mean, he runs like he's mad at the world,
He's been very fortunate to stay healthy in a league where quarterbacks aren't staying healthy. That's been as big a part for them. Now, thankfully, you got Chandler Morris to fall back on if you're TCU, the guy you named the starter at the beginning of the year. I think my biggest takeaway from Max Duggan is if Gary Patterson's ever a head coach again, he needs to really chill out and analyze kind of the way he left TCU in terms of just the stress levels and the anxiety and the way that made people feel. Because, man, it's like the sun came out for the first time in 2 years out in Fort Worth right now. Mm-hmm. Everybody's happy. Everybody's jovial and just loving the season and all that. And you just know, even if they were still sitting there carrying this record with the old regime, there would just be this rigidness of just this, and instead, they're carefree and they're playing loose and they're having fun and they're not stressed out. And I think that's a massive part to why he's thriving and why the team's thriving, is because they're more relaxed, man. And that goes a long way. So kudos to Sonny Dykes for flipping that culture. And, again, if Gary Patterson's a coach again, I think that's something he needs to kind of look in the mirror a little bit and go, you know what, I probably need to just ease it up a little bit.
I learned from a dog trainer one time that your dog will match your personality.
Yep.
So if you are high strung.
They say that about athletes and the coach.
And so it's the same thing. So if you're high strung, then the players are going to be high strung. Just like if you have a dog and you wonder why, I had an aunt who was just the most high strung person in the world, and she had a little poodle, and that thing was a yip like you would not believe, and it just when she was all worked up, that poodle would yip, and you're like, I don't know if I can take either.
Well, yeah, a poodle or a chihuahua is not very good for a high-strung person. They're just going to go off of each other. Yeah,
those ankle biter dogs like Lhasa Apsos and stuff, those are just angry or act like they are, and they're just always talking, always talking. All right, Paul, good stuff. Thank you very much. The Michigan running back a part of any conversation?
I didn't think so because he was so good. Bryce Corum, he was really good last year, and he plays for Michigan. So, they're kind of in, if you're
talking about fantasy football dude again, gosh, I bet his numbers are for
Bryce Corum is great.
I bet those are out of this world.
And Ian Fitzpatrick of ESPN is the one that talked about him and saw him in person and how good he is, and he was dominant that weekend too.
Fitzpatrick?
Fitzsimmons. I missed all three of them. I saw the picture of the coaches in the hot seat and saw Fitzgerald. All right, thank you very much. Thanks to Emery Winter. Thanks to Jacob Wilson. Thanks to Garrett Ross. I know Levi was here, had to move on, and then also, he's still with us, but he had to move on. And then also Jack Get Better, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. Thank all of you. Chat room, text room, sponsors, viewers, pass the word, subscribe. Thank you very much. I'm David Smoak. Have a great night and good night.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.